The townspeople were living peacefully, going about their daily business, but a sudden jolt frightened them. The stunned residents had no idea what could have happened, assuming it was an earthquake. A woman was carrying a basket on her head, and the sudden shaking nearly caused her to drop its contents on the floor. She turned to the guard at the gate and asked him what had just happened. The man waved his hand, saying that nothing had happened and wishing the woman good luck on her way. But she was more persistent, approaching the guard closer. The woman wanted to clarify what had happened. The guard decided to reveal the truth. The truth was that Master Yu Hune was in the middle of a walk. The woman didn't believe a word of it, but another jolt made her fall silent. The man approached the door and asked her to see for herself if she thought his words were nonsense. When the door opened, Master Yu Hune was in the field, his body huge and thick, barely able to move. The master found it so difficult to walk that he sometimes lost his balance and fell. The guard was worried about his health when Yu Hune suddenly fell and immediately rushed to him. But Yu Hune was not happy about this visit. On the contrary, the enraged master reminded the guard that he had told him not to come in. The master was tired, even breathing was difficult, and he decided to stand up, complaining about his clumsy body. Master Yu Hune's determination was unmatched. Clenching his teeth, he declared that he would not lose. He tried to keep going, barely moving his legs. Yu Hune took one step at a time. The next few steps became even more difficult, and Yu Hune almost fell forward onto the ground. The mosquito flew calmly forward, unaware of the huge body looming over it. The master couldn't support the weight of his neck and head, so he began to fall, spurting blood from his mouth. Yu Hune didn't like this approach, and in the next couple of seconds, he found himself lying on the ground. The guard immediately noticed that the master had fallen to the ground and rushed to his aid with cries. As the man approached the master, he was losing consciousness, thinking about how he needed to save Murim. Someone introduced himself as Jyn Wigan, who had returned to the past to save Murim. Despite everything looking peaceful, Murim would soon be plunged into chaos. As soon as he appeared, he would unite the unorthodox Murim and paint the central plain red with blood. All the sects united to fight this man, but were completely destroyed. This man was incredible. Uniting Murim is not something just anyone can do. Jyn Wigan lost his parents because of the chaos caused by this mysterious man. He lived as he pleased, as if nothing had happened. Jyn fought and continued to do what he loved. But one day, he met his mentors, Gan and Woon Hyun, Tagal Murin, the Tanchunsu clan, and the Townspeople sect of beggars, as well as the legendary Sword King Namong's son. Jyn thought that his life was finally starting to change for the better. But he was very wrong. First, the Townspeople sect of beggars tied him upside down and decided to beat him while he begged for help. Later, Jyn ended up in a cave where he waved a torch, afraid of the snakes surrounding him. Jing also swam, but dozens of heavy stones were tied to his feet, against which he continued to stay afloat. Jing even found himself in a terrifying snowstorm, and in addition to the cold, he was starving. Since the masters wanted the main character to stop the minion of chaos, they did whatever they wanted to him. But the masters said that Jing had to suffer because he was young. With each passing day, he strengthened his muscles. At the end of his hellish training, Jing mastered all the martial arts of his masters. Before uniting the unorthodox Murima, he had to find the minion of chaos and destroy him. In their youth, the masters were just hot-headed young men, but they decided to teach Jing everything. So he was forced to return to the past according to his mentor's plan. This was good, because after destroying the enemy, the main character would live a comfortable life. But Jin could not have expected to find himself in such a helpless state. He could not even walk, let alone train. Yu Hune's father, Yu Seong-hwan, asked Dr. Jang Se-yong to do something about his son if he wasn't a quack. At that moment, Jin was once again filled with confidence. He couldn't give up because of his helpless body, because he had gone through hell for this moment. Jin's body coughed up blood. His father became agitated, but the doctor asked him to be quiet, as he thought. The doctor believed that everything was ready. Yu Seong-hwan grabbed him by the shoulder and asked what he was talking about, since his son was in pain. Yu Hune had set a goal to lose weight, because besides that, he had to train in martial arts. Suddenly, it dawned on him that he needed to get the virgin Ginseng before the minion of chaos. According to the doctor, blood stagnation was a sign that he was getting better, and they should let him vomit blood. Jinyu felt like he had forgotten something, because the minion was supposed to get the virgin Ginseng in 6 years. But he wasn't sure about the timing. The two old men were arguing with each other, because Yu Hyun's father couldn't leave the doctor alone. Suddenly Jin woke up, realizing that the henchman would receive the virgin Ginseng in 6 months. Jing's father and the doctor stopped arguing, for the cry of the bloodied young man caught them off guard. Yu Hune immediately rushed to his son, undoubtedly rejoicing that he was alive. The young man could barely breathe, for his father's love was so strong that he could not let go of his son. Yu Xiong asked the doctor if his son was getting better, as Chang Xiong's expression had changed significantly. The main character wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to talk to his father, who was eagerly awaiting his son's request. The father was stunned. His son wanted to take a walk after regaining consciousness. With a wave of his hand, the man ordered his servants to bring a 4-seater saddle chair. 4 muscular men dragged a wooden chair-like structure. Jyn did not consider this a walk. He waved his hand and declared that he would walk on his own 2 feet. A little later, he stood up, but a guard held him up while the others watched. Yu Hune couldn't believe that his beloved son was actually walking without much support. Tears welled up in his eyes. His father was proud that his son was walking in front of him for the first time in 10 years. People around him rejoiced at Yu Hune's achievements, but he himself did not like such support. After all, if the main character couldn't remember his martial arts, all these people would die. For half a month, Yu Hune walked around like a madman. But there was still no change in his body. The guy sat on a stone scale. On the other side, you could hear the sounds of a herd of pigs. The guard waved his arms and herded the pigs into a small pen on the second part of the stone scales. But no matter how many animals got into the pen, they couldn't exceed the weight of the young master Yu Hune. The weight of the pigs reached such a level that even the rope supporting the structure could not hold. The young man was furious, for he had expended so much effort but could not kill the minion of chaos. Jyn tried to remember the real name of that minion, because it was just a nickname. It dawned on him that he couldn't remember. The masters repeated information about him, but he remembered nothing. The main character was saddened, unable to remember a single detail about his arch-enemy. The guard caressed the pig in his hands, noting that it was very difficult to get rid of the fat. The man suggested eliminating sugar from the young gentleman's diet, and then compiling a menu centered on protein-rich foods. But Jyn did not listen to the guard's words, for he was preoccupied with the thought that he might have forgotten. At first, he assumed that he had lost his memories when he was reborn in a new body. But that was not the case, for Jyn remembered most of the things he had learned along the way. In any case, the henchman would end up in Anui province to find Virgin Ginseng. The main character imagined the moment when he would be able to mock the henchman after his crushing victory. Jyn was confident that he would deal with the henchman in Anui province and cross the seed of chaos. The young master's chaotic laughter was so unexpected that it confused the guard. The man thought that Yu Hune had gone mad, saying it was a side effect of trying to lose weight too quickly. The guard rushed into the building, deciding to seek help from the imperial physician. Jyn didn't know what to do with his weak body. Even 10 years wouldn't be enough if he just wandered around aimlessly. The doctor listened to the guard and immediately rushed to help the young master. Chang Xiong was chosen as the imperial physician before he turned 30, surpassing all those who were capable and incapable. At the age of 50, he created his own medical technique, becoming the savior of Yu Hune. Jyn asked if Chang Xiong was the most talented doctor in the Central Plains, and received an affirmative answer. In that case, the main character wanted to obtain a medicine that would help him lose weight. He wanted something that would help him lose weight dramatically in a month. The doctor realized that this was the reason for the master's daily walks. Zhang Song suggested that the Namong clan's refusal had hurt Yu Hune's feelings so much that it made him lose weight. The doctor said there was a medicine that could improve the body's physique if the master took it for a long period of time. Unfortunately, 6 months would not be enough for that. Even with such medicine, it would take at least 3 years, according to the doctor. The main character called the doctor a charlatan and regretted trusting him with this matter. Chang Song added that even despite the difficulty of walking, they still had methods for losing weight. Soon, the men helped the young master reach the base of the waterfall, which greatly pleased Yu Hune. The idea of using the buoyancy of water appealed greatly to the master, and he rejoiced at the prospect. The master wanted to come to such training sessions every day, disappointing the men who carried him in his chair. Each of them nearly broke their backs, trying to carry the young master over a long distance. The main character decided to try out his brilliant idea, so he decided to submerge himself completely in the water. Right away, the master noticed that it was much easier to move in the water, so he wanted to go even further. But when he got deeper, the young master suddenly sank under the water with a loud splash. The guard was unaware of anything, noticing that Yu Hune enjoyed playing in the water. But the young master was drowning and trying to signal to the man to save him. The guard thought that Yu Hune had even decided to dive, noticing his natural talent for swimming. One of the servants suggested that the master might have fallen into the water, as there could have been a cliff in the water. The guard didn't realize it right away, But now he understood that Yu Hune had actually fallen in, and this terrified him. As he went deeper and deeper underwater, Yu Hyun's vision blurred and he began to lose oxygen. Suddenly Jin returned to his body, half a ghost, watching some events unfold. It was a vision of Yu Hune when he was only 2 years old. The child was in the arms of a woman covered in bloodstains. Yu Hune continued to cry as the woman looked at him tearfully, slowly losing her strength. Jin's head began to ache, and he realized that he was in Yu Hyun's early memories. Jin noticed that little Yu Hyun looked cute, and also recognized the woman next to him as his mother. The child's hands reached out to the woman as she begged him to survive. Jin left the building and tried to find Yu Seong-hwan, but he was nowhere to be seen. Soon, the woman passed away. She could no longer hold on to life, leaving the child alone. At that moment, the young master's body continued to sink helplessly to the bottom. The mysterious girl jumped into the water and managed to pull the young master out from the bottom of the waterfall. The guard asked where the young lady was and why she was there alone. The girl replied that Miss Chen. He had asked her to go first. But that didn't matter because the guard had to save the young gentleman first. Realizing this, the man immediately set about rescuing Yu Hyun, whose mouth was full of water. Later, when they returned, Yu Seong-hwan wanted to hear excuses from his servants. The enraged man was eager to hear his servants' excuses before they died. The guard revealed the truth that the imperial physician had suggested that the young master go for a swim. The doctor did not expect such betrayal, but Huang added that it was the truth, so everything was fair. Yu Seong-hwan took the katana from the executioner and began to pull it out of its sheath, fixing his gaze on the doctor. The man was stopped before he could kill the doctor. He wanted to know how Jang Seong dared to put his son in mortal danger. The commotion in the building was interrupted by an unexpected guest. An unknown girl appeared and greeted everyone. The lady turned to the doctor and immediately recognized him. It was the same imperial physician who had been caring for the young Master Hyun's health for the past 5 years. Jang Seong began to accuse the Namong clan, saying that after his refusal, Yu Hyun had desperately asked him how to lose weight. Yu Song blamed himself for focusing only on his anger and not paying attention to his son's feelings. The girl interrupted again and said they could have simply allowed Yu Hyun to swim. After all, according to Yu Jung-hai, there were other places to swim besides the stream that weren't as dangerous. The main character couldn't believe that someone had to save him in a regular stream, not even the sea. Jin realized that Yu Seong was acting this way because he had almost lost his son, just as he had lost his wife earlier. Judging by his character, Yu Song loved his wife madly. He obsessively raised his abandoned son, fearing that he too could disappear. But Yu Hyun lived a miserable life and caused him so much trouble, and it wasn't just about the fat. His sister entered the room and called out to her brother. The main character tried to remember who she was, and he succeeded. Jin didn't understand why his sister was so beautiful, barely believing that she was his real sister. The girl decided to help the young master get up, as she understood how difficult it was for him to do so without support. Yu Hyun tried to convince her that it was useless, because even Huang Chong and other strong guys could hardly do it. The girl easily lifted the young master, saying that she was better than Huang Chong. Soon, Yu Hyun found himself in a chair. The craftsmen who were carrying him seemed very happy and even sang songs along the way. The main character did not understand the reason for such joy, but when he looked ahead, he was stunned. The young master arrived at the place where they had created an artificial pond for him. He wanted to understand why these people were working on this project and what their purpose was. Yu Jung-hai revealed that his brother would no longer have to go to the stream to swim. With a single command, the girl made dozens of buckets turn and fill the pond with water. Now, Yu Hyun had his own swimming pool for weight loss on his property. Simple workers surrounded the young master, and despite their laughter, were amazed that he could actually walk. The main character thought that these workers would have a negative attitude toward him because of his exploitation of their labor. A security guard noticed the young master and informed him that the pool would be completed in half a day. But the main character had a more important question. He was interested in what his father did. The man said that the patriarch was a great scientist whom other scientists looked up to, saying that he was a symbol of honesty. When famine struck, he opened the Yu clan's warehouse to share food and clothing with others. He is respected by the entire Anping prefecture. There are people who were moved by his actions and visited Anping prefecture. The young master's opinion of his father changed greatly, for he was much more impressive than he had thought. Yu Hyun realized that he didn't need to do anything to live a happy and carefree life because of his good father. Soon, Yu Hyun was finally able to swim in his pool, even diving in and out of the water. He turned to Huang Chong and asked him where the thing he had asked him to prepare was. Huang Chong had to prepare a large stone slab that he could barely carry. If there were no chaos, Jyn could have lived a respectable life, even if he just fooled around. There was a chain on the young master's leg, and Huang Chong threw the stone ball forward with all his might. The stone ball pulled the craftsman along, making him angry at the servant who had caused him so much suffering. The main character found himself at the bottom again, and the stone ball on his leg pulled the master down. At birth, the human circulatory system is completely open, but it gradually closes with age. Therefore, it is best to train energy as early as possible. But for a body that has never been trained before, Yu Hune will not obtain the desired internal energy even in 100 years. However, his master had prepared an internal energy training method for such a situation. It was a technique for cultivating the heart of spiritual energy, which was ideal for him. The main character would allow the energy to flow to his heart instead of to the energy core, and into the blood vessels instead of the energy veins. This was the essence of the spirit energy heart cultivation technique, but it required high concentration. Master Yu Hune succeeded. He created spirit energy that would replace the internal energy that filled his heart. Thanks to the new energy he had gained, the young master could feel the flow of water around him. The flow of water swirled around the young master's limbs, and his movements were light and confident. The main character decided to use the most powerful Shaolin fist technique, which can shatter boulders at a distance of over 100 feet. The 100-foot mystic fist. The young master also used the technique of the beggar sect, the 8 drunken immortal steps. Yu Hune's next technique was the heavenly sword of the Namong clan, which represented a flurry of strikes around him. Huang Chong never knew that the young master was so good at staying underwater. The man thought he would give up in 3 days, but he had already been doing it for a whole month. For 1 month, the main character trained like a madman with a body that even the legendary Hua Tuo couldn't fix. If the young master couldn't get rid of this excess fat, there would be no hope left. Fortunately, the scale needle landed in the right place, indicating that Yu Hune had finally lost weight. Huang Chong was hugged by Yu Hune, who thanked him for being there all this time. Now that he no longer has to sew up torn clothes every day, things will be easier. The chair carriers also wouldn't have to worry so much about their backs when carrying Yu Hune. There were rumors that the young master had been adopted because he was so fat. But the main character got angry and asked Huang Zhong to stop ruining the atmosphere with these rumors. The guard said that the patriarch asked him to do something and started running away when called to work. Now the main character has the energy of spirit and has lost weight, but it's still far from the body he's used to. If internal energy is what people get from endless training, then the technique of cultivating the spirit is the consumption of mystical creatures or herbs that are full of spiritual energy. But without consuming mystical creatures, a person could not reach a certain level, even if they trained their entire life. Therefore, Yu Hune needs to obtain the mystical herb that the henchman and the young Ginseng obtained. There was too little time, for the young Ginseng would be discovered in Huashan in 6 months. Before that, Yu Hune had to gain a little more spiritual energy, when suddenly a plate appeared in front of him. The doctor brought soup. Noticing that the master's body must be in shock, as he had been training continuously in water. After a light meal, Yu Hune returned to his training and continued to cultivate. The doctor was very helpful, as he had regained his strength. Now all that remained for the main character was to absorb the spirit energy until it was digested. Although it was weak, it was gaining strength. Yu Hune was confident that he would defeat the henchman. In the coming days, the young master's training did not become easier, but continued at a worse pace. 2 months later, Yu Hune was back in the water, preparing to use his attack, enveloping himself in an aura. The power of the master's strike was so great that the entire pool caused the water to boil. Huang Chong assumed that it was a palm technique, but considered it impossible. After all, the arrogant master did not know how to do it. Yu Xionghuan heard how disparagingly Huang Chong spoke of his son, and wanted to clarify his words. Yu Hune's father asked the former inspector and exclusive escort of the Yu clan, and the former inspector to clarify who he was referring to. Yu Son's assistant asked the servants to pull Huang Chong away before the young master's father crippled him. The chief administrator asked Huang Chong to go to the storage room and enjoy some rest, as he had worked hard. The father rejoiced that his son had used martial arts and managed to send a wave with his palm technique. Yu Xion was disappointed that his son was not interested in academic studies, but he could not forbid Yu Hune from studying martial arts. The old man asked the administrator to bring paper, a brush, and ink, as he wanted to send a letter to the imperial palace. Soon, the father handed his son a book. It was a guide to the divine paradise. As it turned out, It was a secret manual on martial arts issued by the Imperial Palace. Yu Hune thought that Yu Song was simply outstanding in his studies, but he had managed to obtain the manual from the Emperor himself. His father took a chance and told the Emperor that Yu Hune had recently become interested in martial arts, and they sent him the best manual from the archives. But in reality, Yu Song tearfully appealed to the Emperor, claiming that he had forgotten about him. Now Yu Hune had a martial arts master who would teach him everything he knew. The master turned out to be Yu Junhyung's husband, Dam Junwoo, who was also a skilled martial artist. According to rumors, the Dam clan was the best martial arts clan in Hubei province. The young master considered this absurd, as the patriarch of the Dam clan would have bowed to him to learn his sword technique. The main character wanted to reveal the truth about himself, but decided to keep quiet, as he did not want to see that side of Yu Son. And since it had come to this, he would simply accumulate internal energy in his body. If asked about it in the future, he would simply say that he had learned it from Dam Chungwoo. And if they ask him what martial art he used, he will say that it was from the Divine Paradise Manual. The main character fell to his knees and declared to his Shuren that he was now his disciple. Yu Seonghwan burst into tears at the sight, as his beloved Hune was being so polite to everyone. The next day, Dam Jungwoo trained Yu Hune, shouting clear instructions. Every time the young master tried to take the correct position, his body couldn't do it. Dam Jung was angry. He couldn't understand how his disciple couldn't perform such a simple movement. Yu Hyun asked to move on to the next one. Although it was important to learn the basics, he needed to understand other important movements as well. Dam Jung couldn't understand how the young master could learn anything if he was so stupid. The main character was furious because he was just playing along with him. But he decided to let go of his anger. Dam Jung said that someone who lived an easy life might think that the 6-combination fist technique was a joke, but that was not the case. Even in the simplest movement, one could find the laws of the universe. Yu Hune challenged his mentor to a fight. They were talking about sparring using the 6-combination fist technique for combat. The master wanted to know who would be stronger. The one obsessed with the fundamentals, or Yu Hyun, who understood the basic principles of martial arts. Dam Jung's laughter was so loud that even the birds in the area took flight. Dam Jung is now part of the Yu clan, but he was once part of the 7 dragons of Hubei clan. Yu Hyun considered this a disgrace, so he provoked his teacher and called him a loudmouth. Dam Jung decided to accept the challenge, but he didn't want to have an advantage, so he sealed his inner energy. In addition to sealing his energy, the teacher tied up all his limbs to make the fight fair. Yu Hyun was given the first attack. Raising his leg, he created the illusion of a dragon and used the dragon bird's takeoff. Although Dam Jun dodged, he was surprised by how smoothly Yu Hyun connected the movements of 6 combinations of fist techniques. The fight could have been much better, but Yu Hyun's fat body began to stand out again. To compensate for his weak body, the young master had to end the fight quickly. Acting big is something only the strong should do, said Yu Hyun before striking Dam Jung. After his strike, the protagonist managed to grab his teacher and throw him to the ground. In the next second, Yu Hyun found himself above his master and was about to finish him off. The guard asked Huang Zhong to take a break, as he could wait alone. But Huang Zhong did not want to treat the patriarch's orders so carelessly. The main character appeared before the guard, asking him if it was too easy, considering that this was supposed to be punishment. Huan Chong thought that the young master had been skipping training, but then he realized that his Shuren was not in a position to teach. At that moment, Dam Jung finally woke up and told his wife that Hyun had defeated him using martial arts. The injured man asked his wife to scratch his head, as he was unable to do so himself. Yu Zhonghye was still blinded by joy at her brother's strength, while Dam Jun tried to get through to his wife. The sister stood up and continued to cheer for Yu Hyun's victory, noting that Dam Jun would be better after some rest. In addition to the joyful news, a mysterious chariot was racing at high speed. The man driving the horses turned back and informed the patriarch that they had arrived at their destination. The patriarch remarked that he had been thinking long and hard, and did not know whether his servants should participate in a certain event. Another person inside the chariot stated that Sir Yu had asked him to do so with respect. The man in the shadows asked An Ping to visit the prefecture's beggar's sect office. Yu Hyun was walking around the city at the time. It was his first time walking alone in this body. Yu Hyun decided to take a look at the world before chaos caught up with him. The city was quite noisy, and the residents were going about their usual lives. The young master liked this view. In his previous life, he had never seen people laugh. When the minion of chaos appeared and took over the world, shadows engulfed the world in laughter, and people had nowhere to rest. So they used corpses as blankets to avoid the rain. as the cold soaked his sleeves and froze when winter came. Yu Hune hoped that he would be sent to a distant land at the very beginning, which is what happened. The citizens noticed that the young master was moving around on his own, without a horse-drawn carriage, and called people to come and see. Yu Hune felt strange when so many people stared at him and even gave him all sorts of things. The young master wanted to, but couldn't accept gifts of food, as he was trying to lose weight. One kind old woman asked Yu Hune to accept some new silk they had recently received. People lined up in a queue, offering the young craftsman gifts from their hands. In just a couple of minutes, Yu Hune had so many things from the citizens that he couldn't hold them all. The main character had only gone out for a walk, but people couldn't stop giving him gifts. Jinyu liked this life, but he knew he couldn't live like this for the rest of his life. Suddenly, Yu Hune froze. He sensed a strange presence but couldn't find it. An unidentified man was standing in the corner, covered in shadow, and he realized that the young master had noticed him. The guy couldn't understand how Yu Hune had changed so much in such a short time. After all, not long ago, he couldn't even walk, and now he had learned to sense energy. The mysterious enemy wanted to confirm this when Yu Hune appeared in front of him and wanted to ask him a few questions. As soon as the guy noticed the young master, he immediately assumed a fighting stance. The master sensed the enemy's danger in the same second. The man's blow was powerful, sending Yu Hune flying across the street with a single swing of his arm. The master fell to the ground and was unconscious. Residents immediately rushed to him and tried to revive him. The mysterious man began to run away, his agility allowing him to climb onto the roof of a building. A short time later, Yu Hune woke up. His anger knew no bounds, as he wanted revenge on his enemy. Although the young master was in considerable pain from the blow, he was otherwise unharmed. The main character couldn't understand why such a powerful martial artist had ended up in the peaceful Anping Prefecture. Anping Prefecture was only part of Marima. Yu Hune needed to improve his martial arts skills as quickly as possible. Now that his basic training in spirit energy circulation was almost complete, he needed to lose weight and gather important information. If the young master wanted to obtain information about the young Genshin, he would have to visit the beggar's lair. Yu Zhonghe believed that academic sciences and martial arts were interconnected. Yu Song didn't know where to send his son. He wanted to make him an all-powerful general or a government official. Now that his father knew that Hyun was an incredible martial arts genius, he wanted to help him. But his sister said it was too early to send him to the government, as he had barely started walking. Yu Zhong suggested that Yu Seon was acting this way because of the Namong clan, at which point he fell silent. The reason the Namong clan rejected the marriage proposal might have been because of Yu Hyun. It was Namong Hye's own decision. Hye had never wanted to marry since she was young. She wanted to live her life as a martial arts master, not as someone tied to another person. Yu Seong wanted to rid himself of his guilt towards Hyun, so he tried to help him. The young master's mother did not die because of him. They were hunting Yu Seong, not his mother. But the Namgung clan was not the cause of the commotion, as everyone was sure they would try to propose marriage again. The guy in the chariot revealed that Yu Hyun was lazy, and had been lying in bed for a long time because he had gotten fat. Besides Yu Hyun's poor appearance, his character was also terrible, and everyone would have rejected him. Looking out the window, the man realized that by knowing their enemy and knowing themselves, they would never lose the battle. The patriarch of the Namgung clan, Namgung Hansu, wanted to learn everything he could about Yu Hyun, so that they could reject him forever. Wandering through the alleys, Master Yu Hyun did not understand why there was no one on the streets. Running through every alley, he tried to find at least one beggar, but it was all in vain. A man met the young master and wanted to know why he was there. Yu Hyun asked why there were no beggars in the alleys. The man told him that it had been 20 years since beggars had ceased to exist in Anping Prefecture. The patriarch had built houses for the homeless, and even rented out farms. Suddenly, Yu Hyun remembered the words of the beggar's sect. Birds listen to what people say during the day, and mice listen at night. The only creatures whose ears and eyes are sharper than those of animals, but who are simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, are beggars. They who lived in the shadows and under the walls created a special information network. Eventually, they became a huge group that was everywhere in Murim, the sect of beggars. Yu Hyun was puzzled. If there were no beggars here, then there was no branch of the beggar sect either. The man didn't quite understand what was being said, but soon realized that he was talking about the sect of beggars. After drinking his tea, the young man noticed that the patriarch had not come all this way just to drink tea with him. This was Oh Hyun, the leader of the Anping Prefecture branch of the beggar sect. He was certain that the patriarch was here for information about Yu Hyun. The leader already knew everything. The patriarch was looking for information that would help him reject the marriage proposal. Oh Hyun said that Yu Hyun's information was special, so they couldn't sell it until they got permission from the main branch. The patriarch considered this an offer to trade, but the leader said that the main branch had given Yu Hyun's information the status of heavenly. The guy asked if it made sense that information about the descendant of a simple scientist who wasn't even part of a cult was being handled directly by the main branch. Oh Hyun revealed that there was a reason. If Yu Song decided to cause trouble, not only the Anpin branch but even the main branch would be in big trouble. A bag of jewels appeared on the table. The patriarch was willing to pay any price. Oh Hyun stood his ground, repeating that they needed permission from the main branch to disclose Yu Hyun's information. The patriarch decided to take extreme measures. He took off a bright green ring and placed it on the table. Oh Hyun recognized the ring. It was an imperial ring, and its presence meant that its owner was under the protection of the Namong clan. At that moment, the main character finally found the location of the beggar's clan, which looked very wealthy. Yu Hyun did not find it surprising that he could not find this place, as the temple did not look like a shelter for beggars at all. The young master wanted to go inside, but a guard stopped him and called him a fatso, because an important meeting was taking place inside. Yu Hyun decided to restrain himself and asked the guard to put away his sword while he was still being polite, as his title was very important. The insolent guard dared to swing his sword and strike the young master on the head. Yu Hyun didn't react, and the guy threatened him that if he didn't leave, he would be humiliated. The main character was angry. He said that he had already been humiliated and that the guard would soon be spitting blood. A certain leader turned to his servants and asked one of them how Yu Sung Hwan was doing. The patriarch said that they would discuss how much more was needed after the sect shared information about Yu Hyun. The leader couldn't refuse such an offer, so he handed over a book containing information about Yu Hyun's life. The patriarch snatched the book, on the condition that no one would find out that he had received it. Oh Hyun wished the patriarch happy reading and went to write a letter to be sent to the main branch. The patriarch's son looked out the window because it was noisy. He saw Yu Hyun fighting with a guard. The guard let his guard down. He didn't expect the young master to be so quick and even dodge his sword of the endless sky. Yu Hyun mocked his sword technique. The guy got angry and asked him how he dared to look down on his clan's martial arts. The main character knew that the infinite sky sword was an incredible sword technique, but the guard was terrible at it. Even if he swung his sword like that forever, it would still be useless. Yu Hyun asked the guard to apologize before it was too late. The guy couldn't take it anymore and pulled his sword out of its sheath, saying he didn't dare say anything about the Namong clan. The young master merely said that the guy was the first to draw his sword, then crouched down to strike. Yu Hyun delivered such a powerful blow that it sent the guy flying into the air and dropped his weapon. The master grabbed him by the hair and said that the guard should have stepped aside when he told him to. With the next blow, the pathetic warrior was pinned to the ground with a brutal kick. Yu Hyun decided to teach the guard some manners, since the Namong clan hadn't bothered to do so. The young master began slapping the guard's face, using the beating of a true education. The patriarch's son burst into the fight, jumping out of the window and stopping Yu Hyun with his landing. The young master jumped back, but the patriarch's son wouldn't let him go and started chasing him. The young man's blow looked very strange, for Yu Hyun began to experience an unexpected familiar feeling. The patriarch's son decided to use his mystical fist, which exploded like lightning. Yu Hyun realized that such a technique was too much for his body, and in that case, he had an idea. A martial art where lightning is used to rotate energy in the fist to increase its explosive power. By spinning in the opposite direction, Yu Hyun could compensate for the momentum. The patriarch also heard the sounds of battle, rushed to the window, and wanted to find out what the commotion was all about. The main character tried to use his technique with all his might, but the power of his fist was diminishing. Yu Hyun recognized another person in the patriarch's young son as he tried to overpower him. The man whose face Yu Hyun recognized was his trainer in the body of Jyn Wigan. Jin's training task was to swing his sword 30,000 times while balancing on a rock, but he fell on the last strike. The man said that Jyn had fallen because his form was not stable enough, so he had to do 10,000 more. In addition to simple training, the teacher and Jyn sparred with each other, but no matter how hard he fought, Jyn always lost to his teacher. After losing the fight, he was angry and couldn't understand how someone could use a real sword like a club. His master's aura greatly frightened Jyn, and he apologized to his master for his rude language. But he was only glad of this, for seeing that Jyn felt such shame, he knew that he must understand the true essence of the seven-sword technique. For the master, there was no greater joy than seeing his student grow before his eyes. The master prepared to strike again, and said he would help Jyn grow even faster. Yu Hune continued to try to parry the attack, waiting for the perfect moment to counterattack. But his weak body couldn't withstand such a strain, and the Patriarch's son overpowered his attack. Although the Patriarch's son pushed Yu Hune back at the end, he had definitely dispersed the power of the mystical fist of explosive lightning. The young master managed to get up. His spirit was high, and he wanted to kill his enemy. But before the fight could continue, the citizens surrounded Yu Hune and stopped the fight between them. The young master fell unconscious, and all the residents around him rushed to his aid. Yu Hune came out of the building and told the Patriarch that he had sent a letter to the main branch, and they would soon receive news. Noticing Yu Hune on the ground, the leader of the beggar's sect immediately rushed to him with excitement. Yu Hune wanted to know what kind of evil, reckless bastard had done this to the young master. The Patriarch was shocked, as even his son had realized that he had failed the citizens. The Patriarch remained unyielding in this situation, as he had torn up the book containing information about Yu Hune. Later, Yu Song learned everything from the opposing Patriarch, who said that the sect of beggars was to blame for everything. Not only did the Patriarch refuse to kneel, he claimed that Sun had attacked him only because he did not know that it was Yu Hune. Yu Song said that if it hadn't been Hune, his bodyguard could have swung his sword at an innocent man. The man had no response to that. Yu Hune's father said that if the Patriarch wasn't Chang Sun's son, and if he wasn't someone who could become Hyun's future son-in-law, his head would have been cut off on the spot. Yu Hune used a sound transmission device to order the Patriarch to kneel, for he would be unable to resist if Yu Seong called for the palace guards. The leader of the beggars' sect urged the Patriarch to kneel, for before him stood a former imperial military advisor who was respected even by the current emperor. Yu Seong decided to go to the imperial palace. Upon hearing this, the Patriarch immediately fell to his knees and begged for forgiveness. His anger knew no bounds, for his only and irreplaceable son was on the brink of death. But Yu Hune was fine. He opened the door and wanted to know what had happened. The subjects rejoiced at Yu Hune's new hairstyle, as did his father, who asked him not to undo it. The leader of the beggars' sect immediately rushed to Yu Hune and wanted to know how he was feeling. Yu Hune praised the master, for he was fine even after being struck by Namong, and the master had become very agile. The main character approached Namong Changsun and began to express his respect for his older brother. The Patriarch was confused by the family tree, but decided to ignore the title of older brother. Yu Hune wanted to know why his father suddenly decided to go to the imperial palace. The main character said that the emperor did not have much time and that it was not worth reporting such things. Yu Song thought he might have gone too far, but he wasn't going to forgive the man who had hit his son. The main character approached Namgung Hansu and introduced himself. As it turned out, Yu Hune was formerly his uncle. Yu Hune grabbed Hansu by the cheek. He had been waiting for this day for a long time and was now able to mock him. He got his revenge, and Yu Hune was overjoyed to have met Namgung Hansu. In his previous life, Namgung Song was the king of the sword, one of the 6 orthodox saints. And Jin's teacher, Wigan, is crazy. He's damn good at using swords like clubs to beat everything out of others. Jin begged his teacher to stop beating him, but he wasn't going to listen to his student. Because Jin accidentally dropped his sword, his teacher was going to punish him for it. Was Jin going to throw away his sword in real battle and beg his enemy for mercy on his knees? The student sat helplessly on the ground while his teacher wanted to teach him a lesson and show him many of his teachings. Jin could forget his teacher, but his body couldn't. That's why he froze for a second. A tear rolled down the master's face, and he asked his teacher to wait, for he would return everything. Soon, everyone moved to the table for an interview. Yu Hune wanted to know from the Patriarch why he was there. Changsun said that if he told the truth, Yu Sung would get angry again, so he kept quiet. Yu Hune understood perfectly well that the Patriarch had come to talk about the wedding. The main character revealed that he would not accept the Patriarch's proposal of marriage. Since he was already involved in the murder of the henchman, Yu Hune wanted his father to respect his son's wishes. Marriages of convenience, concluded without the consent of the parties involved, are not right. Even if he was stuck with this body in Anping Prefecture, he couldn't live forever like a frog in a well. He must help the emperor by caring for the next generation, which is the future of the country. And Yu Hune would not just watch over others. He must interact with them and improve himself by learning how the world works. The Patriarch and his son were silent. Yu Sung was surprised that his son wanted to join Murim. After all, it was a place filled with bandits, thugs, and beggars. Yu Hune said that Namgung Changsun was not a gangster. Martial arts masters had their own way of living in Murim. The main character hoped that the Patriarch would repeat his words. If he said he would not marry, then he should thank him and agree. He placed his hand on his heart and asked Namgung Chung-soon if he could hear his foolish brother's request. But before the patriarch could say anything, Yu Hune took it as consent and left. Yu Hyun also turned to the branch manager, Oh Hyun, and asked him to come over for a moment. The young gentleman's face was quite intimidating, but he wanted to go out and talk for a bit. Oh Hyun noticed the master's unique hairstyle and praised him for it. But Yu Hyun insisted that they return to the conversation about why he was so interested in Murim. Yu Hyun even knew about little-known martial arts masters, which was natural for him. Those little-known martial arts masters were Yu Hyun's former teachers. The main character wanted to respond to his teachers in kind, so that they would have to go through all that suffering. As Yu Hyun learned, Murim had already split into demonic, orthodox, and heretical clans, which were not worth worrying about at the moment. But that was only for now, because in 10 years, many would unite under the Servant of Chaos. As expected, Yu Hyun had no time to fool around. He needed to accumulate more spiritual energy, and quickly, the main character stopped listening to Oh Hyun, dreaming of taking his first disciple. In the following days, Yu Hyun continued to train. Huang Chong was amazed at the young master's persistence. The guy asked Huang Zhong if he was worried about him, or if he had simply been kicked out of the guard. Yu Zhong noticed her brother and wanted to know what he was doing, as he needed to rest. While Huang Chong was mesmerized by the beauty of Yu Zhong's servant, she asked him why he hadn't stopped her brother. His sister wanted to ask her brother how dangerous Murim really was, since something terrible had happened there. Yu Hyun knew that his mother had died because of the strife in Murim. They tried not to talk about it so as not to stir up the past. But even if they kept quiet, the wounds would not heal. Yu Hyun didn't understand where his sister's doubts came from, thinking that she saw him as weak and unreliable. The main character convinced his sister that nothing bad would happen to the Yu clan anymore. Yu Young always saw her brother as a little boy, but now he had grown up. The young master felt a strange sensation. It seemed very awkward, because he had never had a family before. A couple of months passed, and Yu Hyun changed dramatically. The guy finally lost weight and strengthened his body thanks to training. But because he lost weight so quickly, he looked strange and had a lot of sagging skin. Yu Seong noticed that his son was too thin, saying he was just skin and bones. His father thought that if he slipped, he would break something. The main character added that, according to Oh Hyun, there had been a snowstorm in Hyunsan, which had created a stunning sight. The young master wanted to stop at the Namgung clan to pay his respects to his uncle. Yu Hyun stood up and told his father that he was leaving. He promised that he would return safe and sound. Yu Song couldn't change his son's mind because he couldn't stop him anyway. The main character could not travel under his real name. No one must know his identity. The young master completely covered himself with clothes and hid half of his face. Now he took on the name Jyn Wigan. As soon as Yu Hyun stepped outside, 20 subjects stood before him, along with a carriage. Huang Chong was delighted by Yu Hyun's arrival, for before him stood a delegation that would accompany him to Anhui. This interfered with the young master's plans, for he must obtain the virgin Ginseng and kill the Servant of Chaos. No one must know about his goals. If Yu Hyun reveals his mission, his father will cause a commotion. Huang Chong invited the master into the carriage. Yu Hyun tried to think of a way to get rid of him. After a moment's thought, the young master remembered the jar of alcohol in his room. The main character said that it was already quite late and that they should rest before leaving. He suggested that Huang Chong have a drink, saying that they had never done so together before. The master and Huang Qiang began drinking, and their conversation could be heard even outside the room. Yu Zhong wanted to visit her brother, but asked her servant not to tell them she was coming, as she had decided not to go because of Huang Chong. Yu Zhong was amused that her servant always made Yu Hyun look cute by doing different hairstyles. Yu Hyun reminded her of a young lady. While the girls were chatting nearby, Huang Chong learned that the young master had fought against the Namgung clan. The sister asked her servant to go rest. The woman understood that Yu Zhong was going to wait for her brother herself, so she wanted to stay. But she finally convinced the servant to go rest, though it took a lot of effort. Late at night, it was time to leave. Yu Hyun managed to get Huang Chong to fall asleep. The guard was very drunk and even twitched his hand while dreaming. As it turned out, the bottle also contained poison that temporarily dissipated internal energy. Before that, the doctor had applied a mask to Yu Hyun's face, explaining that his skin looked that way because of the lost fat. The poison was intended to buy time against an enemy who would be stronger. The young master hoped that Huang Zhong would understand him, as it was done to protect the Yu clan and Murim. As soon as he stepped outside, his sister was there and asked her brother if he was going to say goodbye. But without saying a word, Yu Zhong simply hugged Yu Hyun tightly and asked him to come back soon. Even if it was too difficult, Yu Hune could always return. Yu Zhong and his father would always be waiting for him. A little later, the young master wandered into the stable and chose a particular horse. According to Yu Zhong, this horse was a gift from the emperor and had unusual eye color. The main character couldn't even imagine that he would one day be riding a lightning-fast horse. Although the young master had his doubts, his goal was to save people's lives. After traveling all night, at dawn, Yu Hune finally arrived in Anui, the territory of the Namong clan. The young master devoured many plates of food and asked to be brought all the ginseng gatherers and hunters who knew Hunshan like the back of their hands. At that time, the Minion of Chaos was sitting on his throne, gathering a large crowd before him. One of these people declared that they had found virgin ginseng in Anhui province. This news greatly pleased the Minion of Chaos, and he immediately decided to set out on his journey. The gatherers and hunters gathered together. The man asked Yu Hune to find out the purpose of his visit. Yu Hune almost let it slip, but convinced the villagers that he worked for the Yu clan and that his name was Jyn Wigan. The main character arrived in the village to find something for the former military advisor to the emperor, the son of Yu Sung Wan. Yu Hune was supposed to find a crimson stone that emitted light, but the villagers did not understand what he was talking about. When Jin heard this from the teachers, he thought they were talking nonsense. One man said that he had seen it in his youth when he was lost in the mountains. At night, the stone glowed like a red ray of sunlight. Yu Hune demanded to know the location of this stone. The man let slip that it was deep in Hunsan, at the peak of a pagoda. But according to the locals, it was very dangerous to go there. For in that place stood the fortress of the 9 dragons. The fortress was home to mountain bandits. This was a brutal, lawless gang that had existed since ancient times. It was said that some of them were skilled in martial arts. Yu Hune knew that the ginseng was there, and understood that no one would dare to search for it in the fortress of the 9 dragons. Leaning toward the man, the young master asked him to lead him to the peak of the pagoda, but the man was unsure. Yu Hune insisted that he had to go there. If the man couldn't take him, it was enough for him to at least know where to go. Old Escu understood the importance of this task, so he decided to take him to a place where he could see the peak. But the only condition was that Yu Hune promised to return if something went wrong. Towards evening, the man led Yu Hune to the very mountain where the peak was visible. The stream in front of them did not look big, but it was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. The stone was supposed to be right in front of them, and when the sun set, the young master would see it. As the sun began to set, Yu Hune asked the stone to reveal itself, examining every corner of the mountain. Suddenly, a ray of light fell on the fragment. As soon as this happened, the crimson stone began to emit a reverse light. Yu Hune handed the man a gold pendant and asked him to return before nightfall. It would be too dangerous if the old man was caught by bandits. After all, there might be masters there whom even the young master could not defeat. Next, Yu Hune went to the crimson stone, descending down to the stream. The main character knew that no one would think that anyone would risk swimming across such a river in winter. Towards nightfall, the young master found himself at the fortress of the 9 dragons. The guards were discussing the upcoming sale of people they had captured on the border with the province of Zhejiang. Right now, the virgin ginseng was the priority. Yu Hune decided to find it with the help of spiritual energy. If the crimson stone was within 10 yards, he would sense it thanks to the energy flows. The spiritual currents flew through the fortress, and on their way encountered a man who was being cruel to a woman. The ugly bandit threw the woman to the ground and kicked her, and she could not defend herself. What surprised Yu Hune even more was that there was a child in the building besides the woman. The woman asked the bandit how he dared to call himself a human being after doing such a thing. The bandit decided to test how long a real human being could survive by beating the woman with his foot. Neither Yu Hune's body nor Jyn Wigan's soul could allow this to happen, but he had to restrain himself. The teacher kept telling Jin to stay out of it until he regained his strength, even if it was a matter of justice and nobility. Jin had to just watch, for the sake of saving Murim and preventing greater evil. Despite his anger, Yu Hune had to close his eyes and first obtain the virgin ginseng. Nevertheless, the young master decided to leave and continue his search for the crimson stone for a greater purpose. Jing's soul asked Yu Hune what he was doing. After all, he had to follow the path he had chosen for himself. These words made the young master think about his principles. If he continued to ignore such cruel crimes, there was no point in saving Murim at all. The bandit's evil hand reached out toward the little child, while the mother screamed to stop the villain. But suddenly, blood spurted from the bandit's mouth, and he fell to the ground in front of the child. Yu Hune wasn't too happy that he had stained his clothes with the blood of the nasty bandit. The child asked if the young master had saved them. Yu Hune replied that he was just passing by. The mother and her child were very frightened, but the main character covered them with his cloak. Yu Hune told the children to get up, as they didn't have much time and needed to save the others. One of the bandits heard strange noises and came out of the building, noticing the stranger in the fortress. Yu Hune pretended to be someone who wanted to deliver a message, but when he approached the bandit, he began to strangle him. To keep them safe, the mother and her child were sent by Yu Hune to a house so that no one would notice them. There were dozens of people in the building, and they were terrified and afraid to do anything. Although the young master looked intimidating, he convinced the slaves that he had come to save everyone. Yu Hune also found out how many bandits were in the fortress. There were about 50 of them, considering that some of them were martial arts masters. The main character told the slaves that he had come alone and could only buy time for them to escape. While the guy was thinking about what to do while his mother was talking, he said that she would lead the people to the exit. A few minutes later, the bandit noticed his unconscious friends and tried to figure out what had happened. But as soon as he went too deep into the building, Yu Hune knocked him out with a single blow. Looking around, the young master noticed a watchtower nearby, but there was a guard on it. The main character rushed toward the tower. The bandit noticed a blue stripe but didn't understand what it was. By the time the bandit realized what was happening, it was already too late. Yu Hune successfully struck the tower. One blow was enough to completely destroy the tower and send it crashing into the abyss. Before the attack, Yu Hune told the slaves that the destruction of the tower would be their signal. At that moment, the young master continued to rampage, entering the building and preparing to set it on fire. In just a couple of seconds, the house where countless slaves had once lived was engulfed in bright flames. While the slaves fled and the house burned, the bandits were unaware of anything and slept peacefully. But the smell of smoke woke the bandits, and they immediately noticed the fire in the neighboring building. One of the bandits opened the door, but he was stunned by someone's unexpected blow. Standing before the frightened bandits was Yu Hune. The villains wanted to know who he was, but received a short answer. He was the arsonist. Despite the large number of bandits, the young master was much faster and set fire to one house after another. Fighting everyone at once was too much. Individually, the bandits were weak, but together their strength grew exponentially. If Yu Hune had reinforcement and energy absorption now, he would easily defeat the thieves. While the young master was running, they tried to attack him unexpectedly, but all their attempts were in vain. Although Yu Hune was not in the best condition, he could only fight. Instead of a direct confrontation, he should have directed his spiritual energy to his legs to move faster. Having greatly increased his speed, Yu Hune planned to trap all the bandits at once. 2 guards stood at the gate. They had heard nothing about the intrusion, so they behaved calmly. One of them accidentally turned around and noticed a fire behind him that had spread to almost the entire fortress. The bandits decided to flee, as they might have let the intruder escape, and if the boss found out, they would be doomed. The slaves were near the gate and noticed the guards running away. It was the perfect chance to escape. Yu Hune's mission was successfully completed, and the people were able to escape alive. The main character was barely running, as his energy was running out. He did not yet know that the people had escaped and continued to distract the enemies, but another bandit stood in Yu Hune's way. This time, the enemy was very fast. The master didn't have enough energy or strength to dodge such a blow, so it was a direct hit. The one-eyed, dark-skinned bandit boldly asked Yu Hune who he was and where he had come from. The bandits also mocked the young master's appearance, saying he was covering his ugliness with bandages. The main character realized that the situation was not good, as the man in front of him had studied martial arts. The bandit wanted to know if Yu Hune had come alone. The young master admitted that he was indeed alone. Every minute, another bandit arrived and surrounded the young master, forming a circle. Yu Hune declared that he was not alone, and that such bandits did not need anyone else. The bandits weren't scared, and the leader was really surprised that there was so much fuss over one guy. The leader turned to the bandits and asked them why they had done nothing while everything around them was burning. The dark-skinned man introduced himself as the head of the 9 Dragons Fortress, Guacosan. Yu Hune refused to reveal his name. Guac noticed that he liked people like him. Since his opponent had courage and strength, Guac wanted Yu Hune to join them. The young master was glad they were stalling and decided to take full advantage of the situation. The thing was, finding the right people was harder than it seemed, but Yu Hune was strong and brave. While Guac tried to find out his answer, the young master calmly meditated and replenished his energy reserves. If Yu Hune joined the gang, Guac would turn a blind eye to the incident, and he would become one of his closest henchmen. The boss was angry because Yu Hune had ignored them. and the gangsters wanted to kill the insolent young man. Or they could make sure that the young master would spend the rest of his life sitting around and doing nothing. As soon as he finished restoring his energy, Yu Hune stood up and asked Guac how long a wolf had been serving a mongrel. Guac noticed that Hune was making him say trivial things, then ordered the guys to attack the young master. Yu Hune had expected the thugs to be cowardly and attack him all at once. The young master turned to Guac and called him a coward for hiding behind his subordinates. Yu Hune barely dodged 3 attacks at once. The gangsters mocked the young man's wrinkles. While dodging, the young master managed to respond to the bandits, saying that at least he looked like a human being. Luring a bandit into a one-on-one fight, the main character easily counterattacked him. The gangster was about to attack and asked Yu Hune how he dared to use such pathetic tricks. The young master's plan didn't work, and the gangster easily counterattacked in response. As soon as he landed on his feet, a group of gangsters surrounded him from all sides. Despite the many attacks coming at him, Yu Hune managed to dodge them all, but he couldn't catch his breath. The young master skillfully dodged all the attacks, but one gangster managed to catch him off guard. One of the bandits noticed that Yu Hune had held out well for someone who had no energy left. The bandits didn't notice, but he did have energy left, only now it was coming to an end. Yu Hune greatly underestimated these bandits. They were all experienced warriors. The main character didn't know how he could protect anyone in his condition, telling himself that he should just walk away. But he didn't care anymore because he had saved people. He couldn't die here, even at the cost of his virgin Ginseng. Guac thought Yu Hune was brave, but it turned out he was just a fool who kept fighting senselessly. The conversation came to an end, and Guac and his subjects were determined to end this battle once and for all. After strengthening his center of gravity, his body became like a reed floating down a river. The technique of the 8 drunken immortal steps allowed him to dodge all attacks and counterattack. Yu Hune didn't like that his technique was so far from Jin's former form. There was nothing surprising about this, as it was only the beginning. Hun was so fast that even light could not catch up with him. Yu Hune used the shadowless flight technique, and in a split second was in front of Guac. The bandit leader didn't have time to block the attack, and the young master easily hit his weak spot. But this was all part of the main character's plan. He jumped over the fence and fell into the abyss. Now Yu Hune is no match for the mountain bandits, and besides, the cliff is quite high, so no one would dare to follow him. Falling deep into the abyss, the main character promised himself that he would return to take the bandits' heads. Guac ordered Woot to gather the men and find Yu Hune's body, as he wanted to skin him alive out of anger. Another servant revealed that the building where the prisoners were being held had been burned down, and there were only 3 corpses inside. Guac immediately realized that the culprit was the same man. He had single-handedly helped the people escape and bought them time. The commander ordered a search of every corner of Hyungsan, and if necessary to bring everyone back. Yu Hune has only one chance. He must land as softly as possible. The guy plunged into the water, but his speed didn't slow down much, and he started sinking rapidly toward the bottom. Such a rapid descent could have been fatal, but for some reason, Yu Hune came to a sudden stop. The reason for this sudden stop was a huge whirlpool that had formed from the collision. He didn't have enough strength to get out of the whirlpool, so Yu Hune trusted the current. This played into the young master's hands, and after a while, he surfaced. The battle in the whirlpool had exhausted Yu Hune so much that he wanted to rest a little and forget about everything. But suddenly his spiritual energy began to react on its own, sending strange signals. Yu Hune released streams of spiritual energy to find the virgin ginseng that his energy was reacting to. Standing up, the young gentleman looked around. He was in some kind of cave, not where he had been before. A small ray of light fell from a hole above, illuminating the very plant. Yu Hune remembered the words of his teacher from the sect of beggars, who had said that he would find the virgin ginseng in the blink of an eye. Without hesitation, the young gentleman immediately reached for the plant to pull it out of the ground. After pulling a little, a sprout appeared before him. Virgin ginseng was so named because its roots resembled a child. Yu Hune rejoiced, as he had beaten the minion of chaos to the punch and ruined his original plans. The main character thanked the ginseng for the treat, and after examining it a little more, was about to eat it. The coolness felt in the leaves. The bitter taste of ginger on the tip of his tongue, sweet and refreshing, overflowing with spiritual energy. The density of spiritual energy in the ginseng exceeded all expectations. After Yu Hune had devoured everything, he was about to return to Guacosan. The good-for-nothing guy from Huayan Prefecture had returned with even greater strength. Huang Chong arrived at the village where Yu Hune had left his lightning-fast horse and asked the villagers about him. Since the young gentleman had introduced himself under a different name and left, Huang Chong had no idea where to look for him. The next morning, when the guard woke up after drinking so much alcohol, Yu Xiong entered the room in a rage. He immediately struck Huang Chong, demanding to know how he dared to fall asleep and lose Yu Hune. Behind Huang Chong were a bunch of alcohol bottles. This made Yu Xiong even angrier. Then it dawned on the security guard. He remembered that the young master had poured him more and more. Yu Sun wanted to kill Huang Zhang, but the others stopped him. But apparently overwhelmed by his emotions, Yu Sun fell unconscious to the ground. The doctor thought the patriarch was dead, but Yu Sun immediately got up and continued shouting. While Huang Chong was wandering around the village, he came across a man feeding a swift horse special feed. The guard thought this man was a young gentleman, but he was extremely mistaken, which made him panic even more. The young man said that the owner of the horse had gone to Peak Pagoda, where the Nine-Dragon Fortress was located. Huang Chong thought that Yu Hune had lost to the bandits and would be beaten, which terrified him. After that, Huang Chong also wanted to ask the young man where the pagoda peak was located. At that time, the escaped servants were running through the rain and snow toward the nearest village. Suddenly, a man appeared from the shadows and pointed to a short path to the village. As the captives ran further away, the man asked if they had seen the savior in bandages. The bandits continued to search for Yu Hyun's body, but they had no luck. They couldn't return empty-handed either, or their boss would be furious. The bandits decided to split into two groups. The first would go down the river, and the rest would search the area around the waterfall. But suddenly, a young gentleman appeared in front of the bandits, emerging from the waterfall. Yu Hyun realized that the bandits were looking for him, noticing that he was also going to look for them. But the enemies did not recognize Yu Hyun. The young man did not understand why, asking if they were looking for him. There was no point in arguing, so the young gentleman ordered the thieves to take off their clothes because he was cold. After a couple of seconds of inaction, Yu Hyun asked them if they were going to undress, or if he should use force. The young gentleman wasn't going to wait any longer, so he kicked the deputy. However, because he had been too rough with the gangster, Yu Hyun got his clothes wet. A short time later, every bandit was stripped naked, and the young gentleman was showing off his new clothes. He picked up a spear, which turned out to be heavier than he had imagined, but that didn't stop him. A swift swing of the spear severed one of the bandits' heads, leaving the others in shock. The main character asked the bandits what was wrong with them, why they were standing there. He didn't mind if they wanted to lose their lives easily. When they begged for mercy, Yu Hyun said he wouldn't do it, because he promised himself he'd take every one of their heads. The bandits began to flee, but the young gentleman drew his sword and cut off the heads of all who remained. Yu Hyun declared this moment the beginning of the hunt for animals that were not human. After killing a dozen bandits, the young master's clothes were once again stained. Looking into the water, Yu Hyun couldn't believe his eyes. He didn't understand what a beautiful face he had. Now it was clear why the bandits had not recognized him. It was all the effect of the virgin Ginseng. Jin was amazed that Yu Hyun had managed to ruin such a charming face with his fat. As he examined himself, he was distracted by the cries of people on the other side of the mountain. The bandits caught up with the captives, also attacking the innocent old man Escu. The captives were tied up, and the bandit beat Escu, trying to find out if he was in cahoots with Yu Hyun. A young man could be seen in the distance, and the captives did not understand where the stranger with the spear had come from. His next action stunned everyone. Yu Hyun suddenly began gathering snow. As soon as his hand was full of snow, he formed it into a ball and swung it back to throw it. Yu Hyun threw the snowball. Its speed was so high that it tore through the wind. Suddenly, a bandit nearby fell unconscious. The leader had no idea what was happening. Every second, more gangsters fell around him. They were powerless against Yu Hyun's throws. The bandits tried to recover when Yu Hyun appeared above them, ready to make a crushing landing. But it was too late to run. As he plunged his spear into the ground, the bandits were struck down. Yu Hyun landed and swung his spear behind his back, preparing for his next attack, which would cut through the clouds. An attack capable of cutting through the clouds and destroying the moon. Thanks to it, the bandits' heads were severed from their bodies. Yu Hyun mocked the remaining bandits in fear, revealing that this was the sword technique of the Wudan clan, moon destruction. The leader of the group did not understand who this killer was. The young gentleman was surprised that he could forget the one he had mocked. Turning his head, Yu Hyun noticed an old man lying on the ground who had been beaten. The main character immediately recognized the man. It was the old man Exu, who had helped him find the peak. Anger overwhelmed Yu Hyun, and he asked the last surviving bandit if he had done it. The bandit shouted that he hadn't even touched the old man, but the master didn't care. He killed him. Yu Hyun began to walk toward the captives and the old man Exu. The people were afraid and begged for mercy. The young master immediately rushed to Eksu, lifting his head, wanting to know how he was feeling. Looking at Yu Hune's face, Eksu immediately recognized the young man, as he had previously led him to the stake. To help the old man, the main character will channel some energy into his veins and heal him. This is not a complete cure, but he should recover once his condition stabilizes. After freeing the captives, Yu Hune asked the people to carry the old man Eksu on their backs. The village was ahead, and the master told the people to go and not look back, but to be more careful this time. From this moment on, in the name of heaven, Yu Hune will unleash the wrath of the gods upon these heartless bandits. The fortress guards noticed lightning in the middle of winter and doubted its reality. A whirlwind of dust appeared before them, further stunning the ordinary bandits. While they were trying to figure out what this whirlwind was, Yu Hune jumped out of it and killed one of the guards. Before they could even turn around, the second guard was killed by a circular swing of the spear. Standing in the middle of the fortress, Yu Hune took a deep breath and shouted the name of Guacosan. At the young master's loud cry, many bandits ran out and slowly surrounded him. There is a limit to awakening, depending on the amount of internal energy. But spiritual energy is different. It possesses the power of life. This energy pierces and destroys everything in its path, making its master omnipotent. Yu Hune had to kill all the bandits one by one, easily cutting them down. Seeing their comrades dying by the dozens, the remaining bandits began to doubt their own strength. But Yu Hune had no intention of backing down. He continued to mercilessly take the bandits' lives. Guacosan appeared, followed by 3 archers, and commanded his army. The bandits continued to gather around Yu Hune, their confidence renewed now that their leader had arrived. The main character laughed, because he had been waiting for Guac, wondering where he was while his men were dying. Guac brought ordinary hunters, and Yu Hune convinced him that it was useless, as it would only buy him a little time. Suddenly, the young master heard a familiar voice. Huang Chong found the fortress with his squad. The 2 troops clashed. The forces of the Yu clan faced off against the bandits' fortress. Huang Chong easily cut down the bandits, prompting Yu Hune to praise his skills. But first, the young master had to deal with the fleeing Guacosan. When Guac reached the outskirts of his fortress, Yu Hune asked him where he was running so desperately on the brink of death. The main character came closer and closer. The bandit leader did not understand why the stranger was chasing him. But after a short time, Guac realized that it was Yu Hune and couldn't believe that his face had changed. The young gentleman said that it was the work of mystical plants, something he couldn't understand. Yu Hune's power grew, and Guac finally realized that he was a martial arts master and that he was powerless against him. The leader of the gang fell to his knees and begged Yu Hune for mercy. The main character asked the bandit if he had ever spared anyone just because they asked him to. After all, Guac had robbed people, kidnapped children and women, and tortured them. Nothing could stop him. There was no forgiveness for such a man. So Yu Hune passed judgment on him in the name of heaven, so that he might accept it with honor. After Guac's murder, Huang Chong approached the young master and tried to find out if he had seen Yu Hune. The young man was a little disappointed that Huang Chong did not recognize his young master. When Huang Chong finally recognized him, he remarked that Yu Hune was now the standard of beauty, and that he had recognized the master at first glance. The soldiers said that even they had difficulty fighting the gang of 9 dragons, but Yu Hune defeated them all by himself. The young master's methods were a bit harsh, but there was no need to punish him for his misdeeds. Huang Chong asked the master to return to Anping, as the head of the heavenly squad was there, and his father was seriously worried about him. Huang Chong was in a very difficult position, as Yu Sun had a very difficult personality. The man took the shining lasso. The former inspector once again set out to capture the criminals. The main character told Huang Chong that if he started attacking him, he wouldn't hold back either. Yu Hune didn't want any trouble, so he started to run away, but the inspector's lasso wrapped around his leg. Huang Chong asked the master if he had forgotten that the man had once been an inspector for the Central Intelligence Agency. With a swift movement, the man pulled Yu Hune toward him, warning that he wouldn't hold back either. Young Master Yu's blow was powerful, expressing energy and stopping Huang Chong. The soldier was surprised that the master had already achieved such results. After all, he was fighting a man who had once been nicknamed the Destroyer. Yu Hune's strength was not just equal to Huang Chong's in combat, but surpassed it. After a flurry of attacks, the young master's final strike managed to knock him back. Suddenly, Yu Hune was also attacked from behind, but he managed to turn around and block the projectile. The soldier apologized, noting that he had orders, so he threw the projectile at the master. The main character called it cowardly, but Huang Chong was simply devoted to his goal, just like his soldiers. Now the battle turned into a 2-on-1 fight. with the soldier and Huang Chong preparing to attack from both sides. But the fight was interrupted by the old man, Exu, who was dragging his father, who could barely walk. The man didn't think he would be able to thank the young master, but he really wanted to. Not only Exu, but also his son were deeply grateful to Yu Hune, for he had saved many lives. Exu wanted to thank Yu Hune, so he gathered his strength and followed the heavenly squad. The hostages managed to escape, and the gang of 9 dragons was defeated. The young master saved hundreds of people and their families. Suddenly, Yu Hune realized that he had expended too much spiritual energy, and his strength began to leave him. Huang Chong took advantage of this moment and quietly tied the young master with a lasso. Having successfully recruited Yu Hune, Huang Chong and his squad returned to Anping. The main character begged Chong not to do this, for in his hands lay the peace and tranquility of Marima. No matter what Yu Hune said, Huang Chong didn't care. He had to take him home. But the main character had to avoid the guard until the servant of chaos appeared. Huang Chong decided to take care of the young master's comfort and knock him out by pressing a point. The soldier was still amazed at how the young master with such a childish face had defeated the mountain bandits. Huang Chong asked his colleague not to mention the young master when he told the story of the destruction of the 9 dragon gang. The more famous the young master's name became, the more attention he would attract. And, as they say, a nail that sticks out gets hammered down. The soldier noticed that bodyguard Huang truly cherished the young gentleman. The guys agreed that the credit would go to a man named Jyn Wigan. At that moment, the head of chaos arrived at the place where the virgin Ginseng was supposed to be. His body was enveloped in an aura, and he said that the virgin Ginseng was meant for a young master, but it had disappeared. The leader's aura was so strong that the subjects around him began to suffocate from its power. The leader told Ma Huan that a thief had been there. The situation in the Golden Palace was dire, and he had to return immediately to help the young master, so the search was on for him. And if Ma Huan found the man who had consumed the ginseng, his task would be to cut open his stomach and return the artifact. All of his relatives had to be cut down, and if any friends were found, they and their families had to be dealt with. This was his chance to kill the servant right where the ginseng grew and save Murim. Then Yu Hune could spend the rest of his years in luxury and wealth. The main character woke up and continued to be angry. Huang Chong replied that Yu Sung was on his way to a meeting. After all the commotion, the henchman must have noticed something, and it was useless to return now. There would be another chance when it came to the second spiritual being, the 1,000-year-old shell. Huang Chong arrived in Hefei with the young master. It was the first time the master had been to such a big city. This was all new to Jin. After leaving Huayin County, engulfed in the flames of chaos, his entire world had been limited to training halls and spaces created with formations. Only now could Jyn Wigan see the real world. Watching the vendors and residents, when they arrived at their destination, Huang Chong wanted to untie his master, but asked him not to run away. Yu Hune stood before the imperial gates. He was brimming with confidence. The young gentleman was unable to enter the imperial palace, just like last time. As he was stopped by a guard, Yu Song asked the guards to step back, and together with his subjects, headed toward Yu Hune. The young gentleman was happy to see his father, but Yu Song rushed to Huang Chong first. The man lifted Huang Chong and reminded him that the letter said they would arrive together. Yu Song refused to believe that this skinny, smarmy bandit could be his son. But when Yu Hune addressed his father, everything changed, and Yu Song finally recognized him. The patriarch of the Namong clan learned from a soldier that this was the work of a man named Jyn Wigan. But in reality, the young Master Yu had single-handedly defeated an entire fortress of mountain bandits. The man opposite the patriarch was very surprised and asked again for clarification, but the soldier convinced them that they were not mistaken. Moreover, the young master put up a fight, and they barely managed to capture him with all their combined strength. Chang Sun was shocked that the head of the heavenly squad dared to tell such tall tales while standing before him with his father. The leader added that they had refrained from using deadly techniques, and had otherwise made every effort. His father told Chang Sun that he was narrow-minded. His only son, who would inherit a good family, was a young man like an uncut diamond, with a natural talent for martial arts, and who had become even more handsome since losing weight. Chang Sun realized that his father had put him on the back burner, believing some crazy rumors. From now on, the old man would decide the marriage himself, so that Chang Sun wouldn't even dare to interfere. Yu Xiong asked his son to take the military exam. Yu Hune was not particularly keen, as he had only just escaped from his family, and now they were putting a thicker noose around his neck. Namong Chang Sun noticed that by taking up a military position, Hyun would be trained according to strict military orders. No matter how talented he was, the most he could achieve with such training was the rank of general. The main character really liked what the man in front of him was saying and wanted to hear more. However, if Hyun met a good teacher and honed his combat skills, he would achieve greater heights than just a general. He would go down in history as the savior of the state. The title of savior greatly intrigued Yu Xian, and he wondered where he could find such a good teacher. Namgung Jangseon, the Sword King and former head of the Namgung family, declared that the teacher was right in front of them. And it's not hard to guess what happened next. A martial arts genius who single-handedly defeated mountain bandits. Everyone wanted to get their hands on him. Unlike the 9 schools, the Namgung family gives the impression of being strong adherents to earthly existence. Nevertheless, it is one of the most renowned families, having belonged to Murim for many years. By borrowing the Namgung family name, Hyun will have a better chance of succeeding in Murim. But most importantly, he will be able to temporarily cut himself off from the Yu family. Namgung Changseon convinced his brother that he was truly ready to become Yu Hyun's teacher. Yu Xian was worried when he heard about the emperor's concerns. But the news that Chang Xian would look after Hyun made him incredibly happy. The emperor was worried about the future of the throne. In that case, the emperor might want Yusun to stay close to His Highness the Crown Prince. Before leaving, Yu Song asked his son to obey his uncle and give his all in training. His father also wanted to receive 2 letters a week, and to be told if Yu Hyun missed home cooking. As soon as Yu Hyun's family left, he had the opportunity to give his all. Jang Seon started walking and asked his nephew to follow him while the guards stayed behind. As they walked through the streets, all the passers-by expressed their respect toward Chang Sun in some way. After walking a couple of blocks, the Sword King and Yu Hyun began climbing a flight of stairs. At the top, they found themselves at a high wall that offered a great view. Suddenly, Chang Sun leaped into the air. As expected of the Sword King, his footsteps echoed with the sound of great emptiness. Once on the roof, Chang Sun turned around and asked his nephew to hurry up and join him. Yu Hyun couldn't use the Chingun Cabana. If his uncle found out, he would surely ask how he had mastered it. In that case, the young master must use simple physical strength and jump up. Chang Sun praised Yu Hyun for his excellent body control, which the young master accepted graciously. His uncle asked how many places he had managed to visit. The young master thought it was a test of his observation skills. There were a total of 64 places. Yu Hyun apologized repeatedly for not being able to count them. It all belongs to the Namgung family, Chan Sung said, pointing to the gazebo on the hill. And every place, building and brick between these places of land belongs to the Namgung family. Yu Hyun speculated that the Sword King wanted him to run back and forth, demonstrating his qigong to the fullest. Yu Hyun decided to try running to the far point while Chang Sun tried to explain. The conversation turned to treasures, and the young gentleman suddenly fell down, as he was not supposed to run anywhere. The main character noted that he wasn't very smart and couldn't figure out his uncle's plan. But Jiangsung meant that part of these riches and lands could go to Yu Hyun. Once he married the Sword King would take responsibility and give part of it as a dowry. Yu Hyun was extremely disappointed that his uncle had brought him here just to talk about marriage. The main character couldn't expect anything else from a man who was trying so hard to seduce him. Yu Hyun decided to run away. He didn't want to listen to the crazy old man's nonsense about marriage. But no matter how skillfully the young gentleman tried to escape, the Sword King was able to catch up with him. If that wasn't enough, his uncle could add more. Suddenly, the noble martial arts genius was overtaken by the image of an old man from his past. Cheng Xiong said that if Yu Hyun just got married, most of the Namgung family's wealth would be his. The entire Anping County belonged to the Yu family. Moreover, His Majesty the Emperor held his father in high esteem and occasionally bestowed jewels upon him. The merchant guilds were willing to give anything. Even if it was Namgung, there was no point in marrying for property. Yu Hyun was upset because he had expected to be trained in martial arts. But Jang Song overlooked the fact that the young master was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, which was worth more than jade. Those who achieved their current position with only a sword when others gave up and hit a wall were like Chang Xiang. Early in the morning, the sword master practiced his style while his nephew watched. Yu Hyun noticed that the older a person gets, the less they sleep in the morning. But Chang Sun had energy to spare. The Sword King also demonstrated his energy control technique by sending his sword to cut down an expensive winter tree. Tired, Chang Sun noted that such combat training was only passed down to direct descendants, and if he marries he will receive all of them. But Yu Hyun didn't want to hear it, so he moved on. The Sword King asked Hyun to look more closely. This combat technique was only known to direct descendants and could not be bought with money. Chang Seon continued to praise his style, but Yu Hyun said there was nothing special about it. His uncle noted that although Yu Hyun had talent, He had only recently begun his martial arts training. But martial arts were different from what he had seen. This martial art had been perfected over several hundred years, passed down from generation to generation. According to Yu Hune, it was very easy to replicate, and he was ready to show it to the Sword King. Jyn Wigan had studied the Namong family's martial arts while Chang's son was beating him with a nim. Rumors had already spread, so he could pretend to be a genius once again. Yu Hune pretended he had forgotten how to do it, but soon remembered and made the first swing. A few seconds later, the young master recreated the Namong family's perfect technique. Chang Sung shouted, wanting to know what it meant and how Yu Hune had learned this technique. The young master told his uncle that it was his doing, as he had just demonstrated the technique. Chang Sun was amazed that his nephew had only needed one glance to master the art of the royal sword to perfection. Throwing down his stick, Yu Hune repeated that he would not marry, as he now had no reason to do so. His uncle was delighted that such a young boy was so realistic. He had to marry him to Namong He. At that moment, Ma Huan and 2 soldiers from the same clan arrived in the city, looking around suspiciously. Ma Huan turned to the 2 warriors and said that they would part ways here. After paying them, the residents blabbed. The man reported that 2 days ago, a certain guest had arrived, and immediately started recruiting everyone who was familiar with the mountain trails for the Red Stone. Hansu called Yu Hune and asked him why he was resting, since he was supposed to start training. The young gentleman said that he did not need to learn the intricacies of the Namong family's teachings. Hansu had heard about Yu Hune's incredible talent, but he didn't like him at all. Nor did he like the way he behaved. Even aside from his outstanding physical abilities, a true martial arts master must train both his body and his inner strength equally, starting from a young age. But Hansu couldn't sense any nagong in the young master Yu Hune's body as he went to rest. The young man took Yu Hune by the shoulder and asked his respected uncle to come with him while he spoke nicely. The young master told his teacher that he had dug his own grave with his own hands. In that case, Yu Hune wanted to try to train a student so that he wouldn't dare to disrespect him. The young master believed that Hansu had nothing to teach him now, so training was useless. Hansu called Yu Hune uncle and observed proper manners, but he was so arrogant. The main character asked the guy if he was going to beat him up and drag him to training anyway. Yu Hune called Hansu his nephew, which infuriated him, but he repeated it over and over again. The worst thing Hansu could say was to call Yu Hune a brat, which surprised the gentleman. Judging by Hansu's face, he swallowed the provocation, and it was worth pushing him even harder. Yu Hune called him out on his manners, which angered the guy even more, and he could barely hold himself back. Every day, he came up with new insults, swearing like a shoemaker. Namgung Seon. No one could argue with him with a sword, so his second name was King of the 7 Emotions. Every person had 7 emotions: fear, love, pleasure, sadness, disgust, joy, and anger, and he was the one who embodied them in martial arts. In the mornings, Namgung Sun would beat Jin because he was in a bad mood, and call him all sorts of names. During meals, Jin was beaten with laughter because of the master's good mood. When it rained, Changsun beat him and felt sad. It was almost impossible to adapt to such an unpredictable character, but Hansu rose to the top by bringing his emotions to the absolute. But if he is holding them back so much now, then one of Murim's heroes would simply disappear. But Yu Hune couldn't just leave it at that. But in Hansu's case, Yu Hune will have to radically change his character, which will be a big challenge. The young gentleman was the first to attack, realizing that after the beating, he would understand everything. Hansu brought his fist behind his back, intending to show the difference between the real thing and a fake. Hansu's technique was skillful. He launched a flurry of blows at Yu Hune, stopping him from attacking. The young master easily dodged, noticing that the attack was not bad, but too straightforward. Yu Hune turned his body and counterattacked with his foot, knocking Namgung Hansu back. The young master asked his nephew what he should do about his defense. Hansu decided not to back down and to keep blocking until the end, forcing Yu Hune to jump back. The main character understood everything. A broad smile appeared on his face, and he confidently continued his attack. This attack seemed familiar to Hansu, and he began trying to block it with his own block. Taking advantage of a momentary lapse, Yu Hune prepared to strike his opponent and break through his defense. And at the moment of reaching the limit, he planned to provoke an explosion of energy, increasing the force of the blow, as in the Namong family's fist technique. Yu Hune used a thunderous explosion, piercing Hansu's thunder and easily breaking his defense. The attack sent the guy flying to the other side of the palace, breaking through the brick wall behind him. Hansu couldn't understand how, as he had been told that Yu Hune hadn't mastered his inner strength. All he had to do was look to be able to repeat it, even controlled chi. Yu Hune's intimidating figure stood before him, declaring that he was still far from his power. The young master began to beat Hansu, noting that he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Hansu began to curse and yell at Yu Hune to stop beating him endlessly. This was exactly what the main character wanted. A smile appeared on his face, and he joyfully said that this was anger. Hansu passed out, and Yu Hune called him a weakling. Remembering the treasure, he needed to find a certain guy to search for the second artifact. Nothing came to mind that was connected to the cursed servant, but he remembered everything else. The one who possessed information about the second spiritual treasure was named Hwang Dok-sam. Soon he would appear in the prison of the Cheonmu Union. Hwang Dok-sam's meeting with the Servant of Chaos would take place in 6 months. Then Yu Hune would appear at the right moment. He wanted to immediately cut off the head of the servant who had come to meet Hwang Dok-sam. This meant that Jin's suffering would come to an end, but there were no guarantees. To be ready for this, he would have to train his cursed teachers. Yu Hune was motivated. He knew that this time, the Minion of Chaos would not be able to escape him. Soon, Hansu regained consciousness. He was shocked that the young master was capable of beating a man so badly. Hansu wanted to take revenge on the young master, who was standing behind him at that moment. Yu Hune was glad that his nephew had woken up and wanted to clarify what kind of revenge he was talking about. Yu Hune didn't understand why Hansu was so weak. Just a couple of blows, and he was knocked out for half a day. To divert suspicion, the young master told the elders that they had been sparring. Chansung said that from now on, Hansu and Yu Hune should train together, and that Yu Hune was better than him. And so, repeating this for 10 days, over and over again, Yu Hune finally began to see a reaction. Now there was enough inner strength behind the strike. In just a few days, Hansu mastered the technique of filling the sword in his hands with anger. After all, only by pushing a person to their limits can one achieve rapid development. With that, he could stop pouring anger into his sword and move on to teaching him how to draw it out. Hansu went on the counterattack, delivering a crushing blow to the ground. But Yu Hune dodged it. All hope was riding on this attack, and the young master stood behind with a broad smile on his face. Yu Hune said that was all for today and suggested that his nephew take a walk outside the gates. After a few questions, Hansu decided not to resist and took Yu Hune where he wanted to go. The man tossed a coin to the beggar and asked him to chat with him in return. The man said it was his first time in Hefei. The beggar replied that there was no one named Jyn Wigan in the Namong family. He had crossed the Yangze River to get to Hefei. The man had even suffered at the hands of pirates. However, there was someone whose appearance coincided strangely with the time. The mysterious man told the beggar that he was talking about Yu Hune, the only son of Yu Seonghwan, who was currently staying at the Namong family's estate. But the beggar did not want to ask the head for help, as he could find out everything himself. Nothing had been confirmed yet, so it wasn't worth taking up the head's time. Besides, the beggar had assigned his subordinates to him. The man thanked the beggar for listening to him, which the beggar was also happy to do. He decided it was time to leave, so he stood up, and the two headed off to their respective destinations. Another group of beggars noticed the man, who had been hanging around the Namong family for several days and hadn't paid them any taxes. The beggars were angry that a rootless ragamuffin was taking away their place of business. The main character made Sun buy many books with sad and touching stories. Considering the boy's background, this was the only way for him to learn about sadness. The boys also went to see a Peking opera. The joy calmed their souls and prevented anger or sadness from overwhelming them. Only by possessing peace of mind can one ultimately broaden their horizons and then better see the movements of their opponent. Ma Huan and the beggar noticed Yu Hune and ordered each other to follow him discreetly. A small group was formed to attack the heir of the Namong family. A group of poor people approached the beggar, asking why he had changed places and not paid anything. Because of a bunch of poor people, the plan of the Minions of Chaos was ruined, but they continued to interfere. The man introduced himself as Wang Thul, the leader of the Pachwa gang from Hefei, which controlled most of the city. The beggar couldn't use his inner energy, or the Namong family heir would detect him. To avoid being exposed, the beggar allowed the gang to beat him while they watched. Yu Hune said that the master didn't know what was going on outside the gates. Justice didn't always prevail in the world like it did in books. Hefei was under the control of the Namong family, and it was impossible to join an illegal gang. So naturally, the beggar's gang and the vagrant's gang would continue to divide the alley for a few more days. The Pachwa gang was part of the cabana, but in reality had no connection to it. In other words, this fight was not between members of Murim, but a psychological duel between two gangs in Hefei. Yu Hune and his nephew began to move away, which greatly enraged the beggar, and he began to fight. He stood up, surrounded by a terrifying aura, and ordered no one to interfere. The beggar approached Wang Thol and asked him if he understood what he had just done. It was a 1 in a million chance. In a grand plan, there could not be even the slightest mistake. In the beggar's opinion, the only way to take responsibility was death. The man ordered the Chaos Warriors to deal with the gang, leaving no traces behind. One of the surviving members of the gang fled, deciding to report this to the Kaban branch. As it turned out, Namong Hee had no intention of coming. The girl did not want to marry against her will. Unfortunately, the patriarch revealed that he had already left for the battle site. She had arranged for the letter to arrive after her departure. The blame for Hee's behavior lay with Yangze, as he himself had said that he would raise her as a female warrior representing the Namong family. The Sword King decided to go to Yu Hune to send him to the Cheonmu alliance, but he heard some cursing. Jang Seon saw Yu Hune and Sun sparring. The young master was giving him advice on what emotions to put into his attacks. When the conversation turned to the recent romance and the death of the main character, the young man began to cry. The master's attacks became cleaner. The Sword King noticed an energy that seemed filled with restrained anger. Yu Hune interrupted the training because he noticed Chang Sun. The student was very angry because the fight had started so well. According to the Swordmaster's observations, their training seemed very exciting. Jang Sun thought that Yu Hyung was teaching Sun sword fighting, but the young master said that was impossible. However, Sun's style differed from the basics of the Namong family. No one had taught him such methods, and a couple of questions arose. Yu Hyun made an excuse, saying that Sun himself had suggested this method of using the techniques, and that he didn't even understand what he was talking about. The main character noticed that this was the technique of the 7 senses. He said that Sun once told him that he had had a breakthrough, and now he had found a way to put his feelings into his sword. The Sword King rejoiced, for Namgung's sword, which had rejected joy and change, was beginning to change as it entered a new era. A subject burst into the conversation with urgent news. The man reported that a man had just arrived from the Hefei branch of the Kaban. As it turned out, the Kaban had suffered a misfortune, and because of this, the heir and the Sword King had to leave. Yu Hyun decided to take a walk out of boredom. This was immediately noticed by a beggar and his intermediaries. The man could no longer wait for the next opportunity, so he ordered his subjects to follow him. As soon as Yu Hyun reached a deserted place, they would surround him and immediately drag him out of Hefei. The young master enjoyed taking leisurely strolls. It was difficult in Anping because everyone recognized him. But before returning to Anping County so that everyone could continue to live in peace, he had to kill the Minion of Chaos. Yu Hyun recognized a passerby, but thought it was just a coincidence. However, thanks to his keen observation, the young master quickly realized that he was being followed by many people. The main character noticed a vagrant who had been beaten half to death the day before. But he was easy to recognize even in his neat clothes. Since the kebab vendor had suffered a misfortune yesterday, Yu Hyun understood that this vagrant was involved. Suddenly, Yu Hyun began to walk toward one of the accomplices of chaos, leaving the group on guard. The young master pushed the man away and began to run, creating a chase behind him. But when the enemies were about to catch up with him, they ran into an alley where Yu Hyun was not. The young master was on the roof and asked the group of enemies why they were chasing him. Yu Hyun understood that he had been the target the previous night, but he did not understand why the assassins were after him. The young man speculated that they were remnants of the 9 Dragons gang, or those searching for the virgin Ginseng. The leader was deciding what to do. Killing Yu Hyun would be the easiest option, but he was the son of the previous heir. Perhaps the Chaos Clan would have to deal with the government, so they needed to be sure first. The head asked Yu Hyun if he was Jyn Wigan, who had taken the virgin Ginseng, but the young master put on an act and pretended he didn't know who that was. On the other hand, to obtain the virgin Ginseng, one must reach at least the level of chi release or higher. However, Yu Hyun showed no signs of such power. His body had been trained by the strongest master, Cabana, so the gang would definitely not be able to sense his hidden energy. The young master realized that since these people had made it to Hefei in pursuit of Ginseng, they must be somehow connected to the Servant of Chaos. There was no point in bothering with them. The best solution was to capture them and extract all the information. The man apologized and wanted to leave, but Yu Hyun approached him and insisted that they reveal their identities. But the vagrant said nothing and instead sent his warriors to attack them. But to their surprise, Yu Hyun easily beat up the 2 who attacked him. He laughed, assuming that in the vagrant's eyes, he looked like a real weakling. The man was surprised, because in his opinion, a guy without a shred of inner strength had managed to defeat his soldiers. Since all of the vagabond servants were knocked out and Yu Hyun was hiding his great strength, He asked the men if they were going to leave. The young master decided to turn the situation to his advantage, so he picked up the body of one of the warriors and ran. While Yu Hune was running, one of the warriors attacked him from behind with a katana, but he was grabbed by the arm. Finding a suitable spot, the young master swung with all his might and threw one of the bandits away. The nearby locals were frightened by the collision, thinking that the building was collapsing. There was dust and clouds of smoke all around. Yu Hune praised the warriors, saying they were much faster than he had expected. But everything was going according to the young lord's plan. He had tricked the warriors and led them into Haihyun itself. Yu Hune asked the warrior if he wanted to have some fun with him, since they would soon have to deal with Namong and Kiban. Once they contacted Namong and Kiban, it would be difficult to escape, so the minions of chaos had to hurry. Now every warrior without exception drew their swords and prepared to kill Yu Hune. The young lord stamped his foot on the ground to intimidate his opponents. Yu Hune picked up a handful of stones and threw them, creating 12 chain slashes of the Tang family. While the main character was throwing stones, his back was wide open, which his enemies took advantage of. Yu Hune turned around and grabbed a warrior by the neck. He praised the teamwork, but added that a master warrior would not let himself be killed so easily. But while the young master held the villain by the neck, he could not withstand it, and died. At that moment, the leader was nearby, killing passers-by and his own wounded allies. Killing his own subordinates was a clever move, as it was an easy way to cover his tracks. The situation was extremely dangerous, so the leader ordered the remaining forces to retreat. Noticing the retreating enemies, Yu Hune decided that he would no longer hold back. On his way to the leader, the young master easily dealt with the weak subjects. To ensure their escape, the warriors of chaos decided to split up and cause trouble for Yu Hune. Finally, Yu Hune waited for reinforcements to arrive, who gave the order not to move. The main character was delighted with his unexpected allies and decided to focus on capturing only one enemy. The man understood that if he was captured, his grand plan would be in danger. He couldn't give up, so he resorted to extreme measures, pulling a small bomb from his pocket. When the man desperately threw the bomb, he noticed that his opponent had disappeared from view. The bomb caused a huge explosion, but Yu Hune was nowhere to be seen, leaving his enemy stunned. Suddenly, the young gentleman appeared from the side and delivered a precise blow, sending the warrior crashing into the wall. Yu Hune suggested that the warrior surrender, as it seemed that his subordinates had also been captured. The man asked Hune who he was and whether he had been hiding his immense power from the Yu family. The main character said that the winner asks the first question and wanted to know whose forces the enemy had come from. The man did not want to answer, but they were left alone with Yu Hune, so they had time to get to know each other. Realizing that the situation was hopeless, all of his subordinates would end their lives, and he would be no exception. Even if he was destined to die, he wanted to take Yu Hune with him. The main character understood from his eyes that his opponent was planning to do something before leaving. The enraged enemy asked Yu Hune if everything that was happening was a joke to him. Kiban and the Namong family had not yet found them, so to show respect to his enemy, the young master decided to defeat him with a single blow. The man had to cut his enemy's throat with one blow. He had only one attempt. When Yu Hune closed the distance in one go and struck, that would be his only chance. There was one martial art that would show the enemy what another level of strength meant. Serene power touched the surface of the earth, causing it to tremble slightly. The leg that took the step felt solid enough to support the heavens. The man thought Yu Hune was trying to scare him, but suddenly received a devastating blow to the body. Such a powerful technique was able to break through the wall behind the warrior, immediately showing who the winner of the battle was. This powerful technique was a forgotten Shaolin teaching, the fist art of 100 steps. Yu Hune had worked hard in his previous life to master this technique. Now his enemy was defeated, but he couldn't torture him here. Before him appeared Baek Song, the head of the Kiban branch in Hefei, asking him to take a look at the man. Baek Song's subordinate looked at the man and said that he resembled the villain described by Baum. Baek Song wanted the villain to be handed over to the Kiban, but this idea did not sit well with Yu Hune. Namgung's son tried to find out who dared to ruin Yu Hyun's clothes, but was struck on the back of the head. Pak's son realized that these enemies were not weak at all. Even his comrades had reached the level of chi release and chi shot. But Yu Hune single-handedly defeated such a powerful master and remained unharmed. Realizing the strength of the master before him, the branch head apologized for his rude behavior. The Poa gang, which was connected to Kabana, was wiped out. And this atrocity was the work of these warriors. Baek Song wanted to know the reason for the battle. Yu Hune said that they were pursuing someone and mistook that person for him. The disciple of the greatest Chui Bull, the one who ruled over Kiban, would not allow himself to be pushed around. Pak Sun understood that the young master was hiding something, but he couldn't contradict him. There was one advantage to him coming forward. Even if he brought the warrior to the Namong family to try to find out who was behind him, Yu Hyung's current strength was not enough for that. Moreover, these warriors were operating in the shadows. It was unknown what they would do once they found out that the young master was pursuing them. And if it comes out that the tracking squad was defeated, they might start pushing harder, putting the Yu family in danger. Therefore, we must shift our focus, especially now that Yu Hyun has learned that the servant is not alone and that they wield power. Baek Seon-woo is the perfect man for the job. After all, if the people from the secret police are determined to uncover someone's secret, they are bound to encounter the servant and his army. Yu Hyun's task is simply to send a small signal, saying that he has a leader. Baek Seon was thrilled to hear this news, and begged the young master even more to hand over the hostage. But that won't work. He understands the branch head's position, but Yu Hyun was also partially injured in the battle. The young master looked at Namgung-sun in the hope that he would help him play along. Namgung-sun, the 20-year-old heir to the Namgung family, tried to focus and come to a conclusion. The young man could think of nothing better than to tell Baek-sun not to put Yu Hyun in a difficult position. Baek-sun was persistent and asked again for the hostage to be handed over, as the honor of the kebab shop was at stake. The branch manager was about to give in, but Yu Hyun decided to show mercy and hand over the hostage. The only condition was that Park Seon not reveal that Yu Hyun was involved, and that as soon as the identities were clear, he should share this with the young master. Baek Song happily agreed to these two conditions, swearing on his name. The man noticed that the young master Yu hadn't even paid for the information, and that they should investigate for free. But that didn't matter. Yu Hyun mentioned overturning the sky, which meant that someone wanted to take over Murim. If they could get the truth out of him that someone was plotting against Murim, it would be a direct path to the position of elder in the main residence. Originally, the servant was supposed to receive a tip about the second treasure from Hwangdo-sama, who was imprisoned in the Cheonmu alliance. If the servant has power, Yu Hyun needs to be even more careful. It would be safe to assume that since he was unable to get the ginseng, he will act twice as fast to obtain the second treasure. The young master had to act even more cautiously and quickly, tracking down Hwangdo-sama earlier. Yu Hyun told the Sword King that he wanted to meet more people and gain experience. Jang Song is even willing to help by giving him a letter of recommendation, and perhaps they will become closer to he. The young master wanted Sun to go with him, but he couldn't, as he had duties as the heir. Yu Hyun allowed him to take his leave, as he still had to pack his things. The Sword King said he would take care of the preparations. The main character said that besides he, there were other women from the 5 hills left in the Murim alliance, since they were all beautiful, and fate was unpredictable. Suddenly, they might become close, and then marriage would be close. This provoked Chang Sun, and in a fit of emotion, he declared that he needed to convene a family council. Soon, a huge ship on the Yangtze River was preparing to set sail, making final preparations. The man in blue offered a bribe, which his companion initially refused, but eventually accepted. When the soldiers finished loading the boxes onto the ship, the man in blue wished them a safe journey. But in reality, he felt negatively toward them, for officials do nothing but flaunt their money. Inside the ship, the conductor said that the sailors would not go down to the hold until they arrived in Hwan. The man in the black robe with petals promised to pay him the rest as soon as they docked. The most important thing for the conductor was still ahead, as they had to survive an encounter with the Black Whale pirates. Shortly thereafter, Yu Hyun and Namgung Song boarded the ship with their escorts. The ship set sail very quickly, and the main character tried to understand what was so scary about the pirates. Catching the pirates was good, but the losses they would suffer in the process were not worth it. If they touched the Yangtze pirates, there would be problems far more serious than Yu Hyun had imagined. Namgung Seong couldn't believe that he wanted to provoke a fight with the Yangtze River gang and take them on alone. Moreover, this gang has a monster with whom the Sword King is engaged in a bitter struggle. The Water Tamer King, Tusajin. This man is called the Monster of All Seas. By rushing into battle, Yu Hyun will start a war. All the crossings of the Yangtze River will be burned. This will lead to huge losses. While Sun continued to speak, Yu Hyun did not believe that the Water Tamer King existed. The young gentleman decided to listen and not stick his neck out this time, behaving calmly. One of the sailors spotted a pirate ship with a black whale, rapidly approaching them. The pirate ship maneuvered alongside Yu Hyun's ship and prepared to dock. A bearded pirate threw down a plank and began to cross over to the young gentleman's ship. The man in blue was happy to see Mr. Kudok and asked how he had been. Soon a sailor brought a chest filled with shiny gold coins, which was payment for passage. Kudok said that he liked this approach. There was no need to say anything, as he already knew everything. Namong Song expected the pirates to leave immediately, but they lingered for no apparent reason. Kudok said that the pass was settled, but he had an order to find one person. The man said he wasn't hiding anyone, but Kudok knew that he sometimes gave rides to intruders. If he wasn't the one the pirates were looking for, he would turn a blind eye. There was no point in angering each other. Under such pressure, the man had no choice but to confess that there was another person on the ship. Kudok said they were looking for the scoundrel who had committed the crime and fled. The people on the ship were supposed to line up, but the pirate noticed that Yu Hune wasn't listening to the order. The pirate couldn't stand such insolence, so he angrily struck the young gentleman on the back of the head. The pirate told the young man to get in line. The main character was greatly angered by this insolence. The young gentleman wanted to beat up the pirate, but Namong Song asked him to be patient. The culprit came outside and Kudok mocked him because he refused to come out and instead dared to touch his men. The culprit called the pirates worthless, which made Kudok flare up with rage. The leader's sword swing was not bad, but the culprit was more agile, easily dodging it. When the culprit leaped into the air, Yu Hune noticed his strange direction and looked closer. The main character watched the battle between Kudok and the mysterious guy who was holding his own. Yu Hune kept his eyes on the man and also noticed a red snake tattoo on his arm. Jing's teacher had once said that there was a man with a red snake tattoo in the Cheonmu prison. His name was Guacosan, and he knew where the second treasure was. Namong Song asked Yu Hune not to interfere, as he had previously promised not to get involved. The main character ordered his nephew to protect the people. If even one person was harmed, he would train his anger for 2 days. Namong Song drew his sword and stood before the people, waiting for attacks to defend them. The only way was to increase the speed of his sword. His sadness made the sword lighter and helped him maneuver better. Due to the battle between Kudok and the stranger, the attacks hit the people, but Namong Song was able to fend them all off. Watching the pirates battle, Sun did not understand what Yu Hune was planning to do here. Since Kudok was using too much force, it was the man's chance to snatch victory. But the fight was interrupted. The young master burst straight into the center of the commotion and stopped both of them. Yu Hune left the man in shock. Immediately after that, he swung his sword and knocked the weapon out of Kudok's hands. The young master launched a second attack, sending the pirate to the ground, vomiting blood from the impact. Judging by his expression, Yu Hune realized that he was facing Guacosan, and he had a question. The main character addressed the pirates, saying that he needed Huang, so the pirate had to either stop trying to kill him or die himself. But while the young master was distracted, Guacosan took advantage of the opportunity and fled. Yu Hune did not understand the reason for this, as he had worked hard to save Huan. The pirates were supposed to catch him, but out of desperation, they began jumping into the water one by one. Yu Hune asked Sun to take Kudok's life while he was following Huan, and if he lets Kudok escape, he will train only his anger for a week without rest. According to Sun, Yu Hune is incredible, as he has already mastered water martial arts. When Kudok began to speak again, Sun remembered that he had to kill him on his master's orders. Kudok asked the man if he knew who he was. The swordsman replied that he was an evil pirate who had almost sent people to their deaths. Yu Hune swam with all his might, quickly catching up with the pirates ahead of him. When the pirate was about to attack him, the young master jumped out of the water and struck him on the head. The main character was faced with 12 pirates, all swimming after one man. The young master began jumping over the pirates' heads, believing that this would allow him to cross the Hwanghae River. Yu Hune quickly made his way through the crowd of pirates and urged Huan to stop. Even though the young master was a great master who could fly over water, Huan did not want to give up so easily. The main character dodged the blow and asked the man why he was wasting his strength. Immediately counterattacking, Yu Hune struck and threw Huan to the ground next to them. The young master said he would save Huan, and that there was no need to waste his strength, just answer the questions correctly. The man was angry and asked Yu Hune why he should believe him just like that. The young master was surprised that Huan hadn't even introduced himself and was already insulting others. To begin with, Huan shouldn't have run away, and Yu Hune would deal with those who were interfering with the conversation. The main character struck Huan on the shoulders so he couldn't scream or speak. As long as his will was suppressed, Huan wouldn't die. But the young master was afraid he would run away again. But that wasn't the only problem, as the remaining pirates followed them. The hidden weapons of the Tan family were the most suitable technique for this battle, in Yu Hune's opinion. At first, he had a calm disposition. But, as his cruel teacher An Jong-soo had said, everything that exists can become a hidden weapon. When you reach a certain level, you can use not only rubble but also sand as a weapon. In the Nine Dragons Fortress, he used snow, and now he was able to use stones. The heavy stones, enhanced by his technique, became so effective that they instantly knocked out the pirates. Yu Hune remembered Sun's words that this would start a war. People could suffer again in the process. Pulling out his sword, the young master decided that he would first have to get rid of the witnesses. Soon, the young master dealt with all the pirates, and the matter returned to Hwan. Now it was time to talk to him, so Yu Hyun unlocked his voice points. The main character introduced himself as Jyn Wigan. As Hwan could be connected to the Servant of Chaos, there was only one question, and at Yu Hyun's request, Hwan had to take the answer seriously. Yu Hyun wanted to know where the 1,000-year-old shell was. Hwan didn't understand how the master could possibly know about it. The man lied that he didn't know. The young master stood up and decided to check this information. The master began to beat Hwan to make him confess before he was buried. Sun was nearby in a small boat, unsure whether he should go so far. Sun ordered Kudok to row slower. The pirate didn't like it because they were being ordered around. 4 hours passed. Hwan was on the boat, and he finally came to after the beating. Now that he had slept, Yu Hyun could continue beating information out of him with his foot. But what distracted them was the huge ship in front of them. As it turned out, it was the main ship of the Black Whale pirates. Kudok suddenly believed in himself. The young master didn't like that, and he delivered his signature blow. They finally had guests, and Yu Hyun was happy, but Sun was wary, as he had asked him to be careful. Sun didn't know what to do, but Yu Hyun suggested they enjoy themselves, quickly deal with the pirates, and return to the ship. As the sun set, the strongest ship of the Black Whale pirates was destroyed. Kudok couldn't do anything, so he just kept rowing. The leader was angry at Kudok and asked his subordinate if they had any dry signal flares. The leader didn't care if the master found out they had taken the mission without permission, because the pride of the Black Whales was at stake. When the red signal flare shot up into the sky, that man would arrive. The king who tamed the waters, who had subjugated all the pirates, even the warriors of the martial world, held them in fear. The red rocket flew over the Yangze River. Chigal Subom, the great advisor of the Chongmu Alliance, was the first to learn of this. The man said that 2 hours ago he was released in the Yangtze River area. A large number of pirates were gathering at the mouth of the river, demanding that the checkpoint to the Yangtze be opened. The red shell was a pirate signal, fired only in moments of greatest danger. The subject did not know the reason for the shot, and this infuriated Chigal, for 2 whole hours had already passed. If the enemy was so important that the pirates had even fired a red shell, then he was worth capturing. Chigal asked that an order be sent to the head of the Green Dragons to immediately proceed to the western checkpoint of Wuhan. The pirates must not be allowed to gain control of the Yuhanyan waterway, which includes the Chongmu Alliance. Chigal also learned that the shot came from Anui, realizing that it was the Black Whales. According to the intelligence report, the water tamer king was in the vicinity of Ezu County. Icho was a neighboring region of Yangtze. Therefore, he most likely saw the red projectile. Chigal asked, which of the guests staying in the alliance had the highest rank? The junior wandering dragon arrived to take the entrance exam for the Hidden Dragon Squad. This news greatly pleased the man. Late at night, 2 people sat at a table drinking alcohol. One of them asked the man in red if they had launched the red projectile on the Yangtze River. The youngest stray dragon of Kaban, Dusin, noticed that even nonsense should have a limit. Kadushin asked what was so good about getting drunk to such an extent, since it was also very harmful to one's health. A drunk girl got up and asked Kadushin why he had woken her up. The guy replied that her uncle had sent him on a mission. She was leaving for Shanxi tomorrow, where a war had broken out with some gangs. Ki wanted to say goodbye, but the girl didn't care. She was more concerned that the alcohol was coming back up. Kei gave the guy a bundle that was meant for a group of vagabonds so they could search the waterways of Wuhan in the north. The girl noticed that now the king who tamed the waters would get involved. She didn't want this generous vagabond to suffer for nothing. Yu Hyun's ship was also damaged and could barely sail on, leaving the people in a bad situation. At that time, Song and the young master continued to fight the pirates approaching them. No matter how many ships they destroyed, more and more pirates were heading toward the young master. Yu Hyun told Kudok to start sailing toward the nearest harbor where they could land. Suddenly, a man appeared out of nowhere in the sky and fell rapidly toward the ground. It was Dushin. He introduced himself and declared that from now on, the ship was under the protection of the Cheonmu Alliance. While Kei promised protection from the Cheonmu Alliance, the young master tried to figure out who was standing in front of him. Soon, the main character recognized him. Dushin was one of his teachers from his past life. When the pirates noticed something, they put their hands together and greeted the leader on behalf of the sons of the Yangtze River. As it turned out, There was a small boat next to their ship, in which was a water tamer. Yu Hune told Doc to turn around, for they must not collide with the small boat ahead. But the young master already knew that a collision was inevitable, no matter how hard they tried. Extending his hand forward, the water tamer easily stopped the entire ship. In the next second, the water tamer and his guard were on Yu Hune's ship. Caducean addressed the ruler of the Yangze River on behalf of the fox envoy Caban, and greeted him. Sun also expressed his greetings as the son of the Namong family. Kay continued speaking. In an instant, the king's assistant appeared before Caducean and grabbed him by the neck. The king noticed that the young man had perfectly caught the movement of Ginseng, who had mastered the level of shining chi. The main character told the elder that he was a well-known person, and that there was no point in intimidating some boy. The elder agreed, for they both understood that this could harm his reputation. Seeing the sign from the Water King, Ginseng released Caducean and threw him to the ground. The elder turned to Yu Hune and asked him to explain what had happened. They were almost at the Cheomu alliance, but the Water King appeared out of nowhere, and if Yu Hune did the wrong thing, he could die. The main character said that they were sailing on a ship to Wuhan, but then pirates appeared and began to intimidate the common people. According to Yu Hune, he suddenly decided to become a hero, which the old man didn't really want to believe. The main character revealed that he was from the Yu family, located in Anping County, Henan Province. The Yu family had powerful government support. His father was formerly the crown prince. Even now, he was in Yintianfu, watching over His Highness the Crown Prince at the request of His Majesty the Emperor. As the divine strategist teacher had said, if you want to crush your enemy with words, you must show that you have powerful support, and if you don't, then lie boldly. But the elder did not really care whose son Yu Hune was. He was interested in what he had to offer. The old man was a pirate, which he had been since birth and would remain so until the end of his days. He would be hunted down anyway. Yu Hune had to protect the passengers, Namgung Sun and Huang Doksama, but he didn't know how. There were two monsters in his way. With Yu Hune's current level, he couldn't even touch the guards. The divine strategist taught the other one as well. There are two truths in an agreement. Either pressure your opponent's fears, or lure them with something good to arouse their interest. Yu Hune was just generalizing his status, saying he wouldn't dare to be rude to him. But he misunderstood. He wanted the elder to show mercy and spare him, but he sank dozens of ships. Yu Hune offered to pay compensation. After all, as a pirate, he must like money. The elder realized that he was being offered money. The young master wanted to clarify the amount. A smile appeared on the king's face. He approached Yu Hune and said that he liked him. The elder asked the young craftsman to look around. All the people around them were armed with swords from the Cheonmu alliance, but for some reason, they did not act. Yu Hune did not know the real reason and asked for clarification. They were sizing each other up. They looked righteous, shouting about their alliance, but in their minds they were deciding what would be more beneficial. If they went to war with the Water King to save a handful of people, the damage would be immeasurable. The Cheonmu alliance was also represented by righteous sects, but only Yu Hune offered them a deal. The elder would hardly believe a young master if he said that he needed these people to deal with his servant and save the whole world. The Water King guessed what kind of character Yu Hune had, but he couldn't see his abilities. A clumsy person wouldn't be able to follow Ginseng's movements. The old man had no choice but to check everything himself. He told the young master that there were many things in the world that money couldn't solve. On the elder's orders, Ginseng took out his sledgehammer and was about to strike Kay. The main character immediately noticed this and rushed to his aid, calling the old man crazy. Yu Hune knocked the sledgehammer away with a quick attack and told Caducean to dodge instead of lying down. Kay ran away, but now he was left face to face with Ginseng, who was about to attack. Yu Hune decided to finish off Ginseng with one blow. His opponent was a master who had reached the initial stage of shining chi. If the fight dragged on, he would definitely lose. A power close to the source, filled with the purest natural chi. In terms of strength and quality, it was a level above the internal chi accumulated in the Dantian. The blow was so powerful that June could neither dodge nor stop it. The king tamer realized the danger his guard was in and saved him by stopping Yu Hune's strike. The young lord fell to the ground and called the water-taming king a vile man. Sun could not bear to look at his defeated uncle, so he grabbed his sword and prepared to take revenge. But the young man could do nothing, as the king easily subdued him with his gaze. His uncle fought with his life to save Sun, but he couldn't even move. Having broken the suppression, the boy had to save his uncle, even if it meant losing his own life. Sun was able to awaken the will of the sword. The pale color meant that he had not mastered it perfectly. The king liked these guys. The first one had fought back against Junsan, and the other had torn apart the art of binding chi. But Sun was not in the best condition. Due to his excessively turbulent power, cruelty had seeped into his mind. The water tamer realized that Sun was related to Chang Su, and he couldn't kill him and let Chang Su see such a talented guy. With no other options left, the tamer had to stomp his foot on the ground. When Yu Hune opened his eyes, Junsan was sitting in front of him, and there was a plate of delicious chicken. The king noticed that the boy had woken up. He asked him to first satisfy his hunger with the food that Junsan had caught. The pirate recommended that he eat, as his stomach was empty and he was slightly dehydrated. Not noticing the other guys nearby, Yu Hune felt angry and asked the king if he had done something to them. As it turned out, the king had spared the men. The child of the Namong family was slightly injured, but he would be fine. The king was closely connected to Chang Sun's evil fate, so he would not trample the sprout into the ground. Yu Hune was hungry and decided to eat some food despite his fear that it might be poisoned. The doctor stuck many needles into Sun's body, saying that the king, the tamer of waters, had shown mercy for some reason. Kay was surprised that beating a man half to death was mercy, but it turned out not to be the case. If it weren't for the water master, Sun would have soon gone mad and by now would have been disabled. The king thought about this child. Not only had he forcibly suppressed the demonic chi, but he had also disrupted the circulation of chi throughout his body. The doctor went to send a letter to the Namong family, as it was necessary to calm the Sword King's anger before he flew into a rage upon hearing the news. In that brief moment, the water-taming king managed to do all this while Sun attacked. After that, the king ordered the rest of the alliance and the pirates to get out of there. And finally, when they returned to the boat, Junsan was holding Yu Hune in his arms. Now the atmosphere was much friendlier, and Junsan shared his chicken with the young master. On the surface, the king looked like an ordinary old man, but he was completely different on the battlefield. The king offered Yu Hune a drink. Upon learning how old he was, the elder was even more surprised that someone so young was so capable. After a few questions, the main character revealed that he had been trained by his brother-in-law from the family in Hubei. Even though it was a region of military clans, the old man still knew what kind of martial arts they practiced. The martial arts of the family there were bold and powerful, but they were not as flexible and soft as Yu Hune's. And the palm technique he used to attack Junsan was different from the usual internal qigong. The king's observation skills were good. He knew that this was something much more fundamental. Even the Sword King did not understand this. The elder was intrigued, as he had never seen energy used in such a way before. While the pirates were cooking, the king wanted to know if Yu Hune had a teacher in Murim. And since he had no teachers, the elder decided that from that moment on, he would be his disciple. All because Yu Hune had agreed to pay for the damage he had caused, and so he would be his disciple in return. The king offered his disciple a cup of wine, but Yu Hune couldn't accept it so quickly, and refused. The young master said that his father was a highly respected man. He was even a prince, and was still the teacher of His Highness the Heir, so he couldn't become a pirate. Yu Hune was defiant and did not want to become a pirate. The king became angry and offered to have him beaten. The master had heard from Kudok that Yu Hune was also an excellent swimmer. Swimming talent was something you were born with, and what's more, at such a young age, he had stood up to Junsan. Such talent comes once in 1,000 years, and the pirate couldn't let it slip away. Rolling up his sleeves, the king noticed that he had many doubts. The water tamer decided to shorten the time for deliberation with physical force, coaxing him into agreeing. Yu Hune agreed to become an apprentice, but in return, he wanted it to be temporary. The main character still hasn't gotten any info about the second treasure from Hwandok-sam. He needs to get to him by any means necessary and find out where the treasure is. If the truth about Yu Hune becoming the Pirate King's apprentice comes out, everyone will start looking at him suspiciously. And then he will turn into a frog, left only to gaze at the Yangze River. The young master wanted to gain experience, and in the future expand the Yangze pirates to such an extent that they would subjugate the entire empire. Such figures surprised even the strongest leader in the history of the entire group. The elder agreed, but if Yu Hune deceived him, he would not hesitate to wipe out everything related to him from the face of the earth. Junsan was ordered to spread the news that Yu Hune was now the young master of the Yangze. However, not a word about him was to be leaked to the public. If anyone found out, the king swore by his name that he would punish the culprit immediately. The young master obeyed not because he had been beaten, but because of a careful strategy. Later, he would still devour the hordes of Yangze pirates, and as soon as he eats all the spiritual treasures and spiritual grass, Yu Hune will crush this old man with one left hand. While the water tamer was drinking, Changsen found him and angrily began a dialogue. The Sword King warned the Water King not to touch his children. The old man did not understand what he was talking about. The Water King said that Changsen had misunderstood everything, because he later found out that his grandson was on the ship. He had learned about Sun on the way. Chanson had heard that the king had cleansed his energy circulation. The king became angry and asked why the hell Changsen was bothering him if he had saved his nephew from madness. The Sword King wanted him to return Yu Hune as well. If even a hair fell from his head, he would turn the Yangtze River into a sea of blood. The tamer declared that he could not return the young master, as he was now his disciple. The Sword King was seriously angry and drew his sword with the intention of killing the old man. The tamer jumped into the water. Changsun's sword nearly killed him, but he managed to dodge it. The Sword King told the tamer to come out of the water to him, and he would cut him to pieces. While the two kings argued with each other, calling each other all sorts of names, Junsan brought back the loot. The tamer decided to stop arguing and revealed that Yu Hune had long since sailed away and must now be in Wuhan. Only after the quarrel did the Sword King decide to thank the old man for saving his nephew. The two elders decided to drink and discuss the fact that Yu Hune should already have arrived at the Cheonmu Alliance. While the young master was sailing, the alliance surrounded him and refused to listen, initially intending to tie him up. In any case, Yu Hune was going to the Cheonmu Alliance to meet Huang Do-sam. But for now, it was better not to cause any unnecessary commotion. The young master later found himself in a chariot that drove through a city that looked like a forest made of pavilions. The guy noticed Yu Hune, who, according to rumors, had single-handedly defeated mountain bandits and was able to stand up to the Yangtze pirates. If the young master became a hero who stopped the chaos, he would be appointed head of the Union in honor of this. But for this dream to come true, he first had to deal with Huang Do-sam and his search. Soon the chariot arrived at the tall building of the Cheonmu Union. Here, the great advisor was doing his job. As soon as the doors to the advisor opened, the young man knelt down. Chigal greeted the deputy head of the Green Dragon Squad, Peng Songchan. In the room was also an old man named Li Haksam, the head of the Cheonmu Union, a white warrior. His speech was soft and calm, but it carried so much weight. It was not a thirst for murder, but the superiority of the strongest, which made people freeze at a single glance. The teacher said that if Li Haksam had survived and taken up the fight, it might have been possible to stop the Servant of Chaos. Li Haksam was surprised, because at 17, Yu Hune had raised his energy to the level of a slashing chi. The boy had the gaze of a dragon. But Li was also curious if he had ever faced the king who tamed the waters one-on-one. One of them was his teacher's teacher, Chigal Subom. The other was the head of the Union, whom even his teachers, Li Haksam, revered. Yu Hune felt like he had entered a den of tigers. He first needed to collect his thoughts. Chigal wanted to know if Yu Hune was guilty. The boy revealed that he couldn't pretend not to notice how people were suffering from the pirates' tyranny. Chigal wanted to know who the middle-aged man was, because according to the passengers, he had suddenly intervened in the fight. Apparently, Huan had already been interrogated, but he didn't say that Yu Hune had asked about the 1,000-year-old shell. Then the young gentleman had to come up with a convincing reason why he had intervened in the fight. A brilliant plan came to Yu Hune's mind, and he swung his arm at the hand offered to him. Li managed to grab the young master's hand and said that this was his answer to the question. The head realized that he had rushed in without thinking to save people. That was a good reason. Yu Hune wanted to know what had happened to the man. The advisor was surprised, adding that according to rumors, the young man had used violence. The young gentleman said he had done it out of anger. The man had nearly put innocent people in great danger. Chegal said that Huan was in custody. They locked him up to question him about the cause of the incident. Suddenly, the advisor suggested that Yu Hune meet with the prisoner. He considered it a kind of bait. They decided to follow the interrogation and find out why he saved Huang Do-sam. After drinking tea, Yu Hune said that he wanted to meet him, and, on the contrary, wanted to ask for it first. Chigal said that the gods would be notified and he could come at any time to visit Huan. The advisor also wanted to know why the king had spared the young man. Yu Hune replied that he had agreed to compensate for the damage. Li asked them not to treat them like fools, for the king surely must have wanted to kill the young craftsman. Yu Hune asked Li to ask the tamer himself, saying that he would compensate for everything, and they let him go. The main character came up with another reason, saying that his overly protective father, Yu Song Huan, would make a big fuss. After that, Yu Hune left. Chigal didn't know how much to believe these words, but Li didn't mind. Li did not sense any inner strength in the boy. His dantian was empty. Chigal assumed that Neguna was not with him at all. But that wasn't the case, because Lee felt a slight recoil when he stopped Yu Hune's hand. It was obvious that he used a different place instead of his dantian for spiritual practice. The Sword King and the Water Tamer would not have shown interest in a child without a valid reason. Lee suggested leaving him behind. It was his opinion, but Yu Hune could help Chagall in that matter. They planned to gather hidden dragons from all corners of the world and unite them into a single combat unit. But so far the results were disappointing. Those who could be called hidden dragons were usually the heirs of their families or their driving combat force. They were not easy to recruit. According to the doctor, Namong Song could soon break through to a new level. Chagall had already heard about this, because he had been helped by the Water Tamer. Lee suggested that this achievement could be seen as Yu Hune's success. The young warrior, who single-handedly fought the Black Whale pirates to save people, survived even after clashing with the king. He comes from a distinguished family and is handsome. He has everything going for him. Moreover, Namong Song rose to the level of shining chi while being close to Yu Hune. But the head only provided food for thought, while the details of the plan lay with the advisor. The young gentleman came to his nephew, whose body was practically bandaged. Kadushin turned to Sun and asked if he wanted to join the Hidden Dragon Squad. Walking a little further, Kei noticed Mr. Yu by the bed of the bandaged son. Yu Hune wanted to take Kei under his wing. At that moment, the young man was reading a scroll containing information about the Hidden Dragon Squad. Upon hearing the names Sadok and Murin, Yu Hune snatched the scroll from his hands. Kei said that he must not see this document, for only young warriors belonging to the righteous clans of Murim could join the unit. The main character's face lit up because the scroll had the names of all his former teachers. The guy who fought the snake was Am Cheonsu from the Tan family. The humble swordmaster was Un Hyun from the immortal sword clan of Udan. The young man under the waterfall was particularly tormented by emotional turmoil today. Wangana, a Shaolin monk. In the eyes of the divine strategist Chagall Marina, the stars seemed too chaotic today. Yu Hune understood that under the pretext of the Hidden Dragon Squad, he would be able to manipulate all the cursed teachers. The main character came up with a new plan, so he asked Kei to enroll him and Sun in the Hidden Dragon Squad.